Welcome to the Game of Thrones! Tuesday. Okay, all right.
That was so good.
To the Battle of the Bastards.
The Battle of the Bastards.
Welcome to another Takeaway Tuesday of a show that captured, everyone. Everyone here loved it. Some people here have watched it the whole entire series multiple times. Game of Thrones that we're reading tonight. And as it was pointed out, this one has a lot of action. It's a battle. So we're going to see what that looks like on the page. And we'll go around and introduce the awesome readers that are willing to take on the fight. And so in my top left corner, we have Ari.
Hi, I'm Ari Williamson. I am a voice actor, and I've been looking forward to this ever since I saw it in the group.
All right, and Ari, now we're trying to do a little more longer intro, and we are chopping off the one at the end. So if you want to tell them what else you like to do and where they can find you.
Oh, okay. Good to know. You can find me on Facebook. I like doing video edits, voices, what have you. You can locate it in Calgary at the moment.
All right, sweet. I'm Jacob Patrick. You can go to jacobpatrick.com, but more likely come here every Tuesday and read along with us. And if you're an actor and you want to take a part, you can go to Facebook. We have a Facebook group there, and also mainly YouTube and Facebook, but there's also Twitter and Instagram. So like, subscribe, follow. And next in this corner, we have the Grey Worm, Cat.
Hi, I'm Catherine Wilson. I'm in Gig Harbor, Washington. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I do this for fun. I'm not looking for work. And just really glad to be here.
Excellent. We're really glad to have you here. And thank you for all your insights that you bring. We appreciate them. Next, we have Erin Lillis.
Hello, I am Erin Lillis, currently voice actor, previously worked in entertainment advertising on this particular campaign, actually made banner ads for Game of Thrones and multiple things. And before that, lots of other things. But now, more importantly, voice actor, you can find me at erinlillis.com. And tonight I'll be playing Yara, Rosdal, and Small John.
Sweet. And next, we have Roxane.
Hello, I'm Roxane Armstrong. I am an actor here in Central Alberta. I've done a ton of theater, starting to do a little film, and playing around with some improv is the new thing. You can find me on Facebook as Roxane Armstrong, on Instagram as Roxane, and I'm here every Tuesday having a little fun, as you can tell, because I'm not blonde.
Very fun. And next, we have Roger Anthony.
Hello there. I am Roger Anthony. I will be reading Ramsay tonight. You can find me on Instagram, on the gram, and actually you can see me on the #1 film on Amazon Prime, in the film called On a Wing and a Prayer, and that's with Dennis Quaid and Heather Graham. So very pleased to be playing a very nice character tonight, Ramsay, as you shall see. He's a very nice person.
Nice. I love nice people. Very nice. Can't wait to hear it. That performance. That's awesome. That's awesome. And we also have Vicky Dykes.
Hello, I'm Vicky Dykes. I'm an actress in Central Alberta, and I can be found on Instagram under YogaGramma7, and I'm on Facebook under Vicky Dykes. And tonight I'll be playing Davos and Balicho and Bolton General.
Excellent, excellent. And we have Heather Lee Cameron.
Hello, my name is Heather Lee Cameron. Tonight I'll be playing Tormund. You can find my work at Heather Lee Freelancer on Facebook and the Stormund Latter-day Saint on YouTube. I actually had a couple of things released recently, but as far as I know, one of my few film projects, because I've done a lot of theater and other things, but so few films and voice acting. I'm an actor, I'm a writer, I'm a voice actor, I'm an independent filmmaker, I'm a family history research student. I'm known as Kim on Angel Dust, which can be found on Amazon Prime. And there's other projects that I can share after, but tonight my role is Tormund.
Ooh, nice. And we have a Shaki.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ashaka Yoka. I am an audiobook narrator, voice actor, writer, podcast creator, and engineer. Tonight, I will be Sansa, Missandei, and Karstark. You could find me on all the socials at Ashaka Yoka and at ashakayoka.com. And you can also find me here on Tuesdays whenever I'm available.
Awesome, awesome. All right. And with that, we'll get started on reading episode 609, Battle of the Bastards. So hard to say, but it's all right. I'm going to share the screen. And for the first 7 pages, if Vicky will do us the honors of reading. We should go back to the beginning, shouldn't we? There we are.
Game of Thrones, Battle of the Bastards, written by David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, based on A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. Game of Thrones, episode 609.
Kind of cool to see these scripts, and that's why we do it, to see how they break this all down.
Exterior Marine, Slavers Bay Day. The ships in the slaver armada bombard the city with their trebuchets. Volleys of flamingo projectiles.
Sorry.
I'm
Soar
sorry.
over the beach.
It's trebuchets.
I can see it better now.
Yeah, and as you guys
Flamingo
know, like,
projectiles, though,
we just gave them the casting. We just asked Vicky to do this right before, so this is all cold. So
I'm going to read that over. The ships in the slaver armada bombard the city with their trebuchets. The volleys of flaming projectiles soar over the beach and into the city. Interior Great Pyramid Penthouse Day. The sound of the impacts and the distance chaos they cause are audible throughout this scene between Daenerys Targaryen and Tyrion Lannister, adding further pressure to an already pressurized situation. Tyrion flinches each time a projectile lands near the pyramid because he's human and it's a natural human reaction. Dany never flinches. She is not the same woman who flew away from Daznak's pit on the back of a dragon. She is changed utterly, a terrible beauty glaring at Tyrion. Boom.
despite appearances, I think you'll find the city's on the rise.
Boom. That one was close.
Perhaps we should take shelter.
This city is on the rise.
Marine is strong. Commerce has returned to the markets. The people are behind you.
Boom. Dany watches Tyrion flinching, regarding him as the snake regards the mouse.
Well, not all the people, of course. No ruler who ever lived had the support of all the people. But the rebirth of Marine is the cause of the violence.
Boom.
The masters cannot let Marine succeed, because if Marine succeeds, a city without slavery, a city without masters,
Boom.
it proves that no one needs a master.
Dany nods. He's finally starting to make sense. Boom. Tyrion flinches again and is a bit embarrassed when he sees Dany coolly regarding him with a slight smile.
Good. Shall we begin?
Do we have a plan?
I will crucify the masters. I will set their fleet afire, kill every last one of their soldiers, and return their cities to the dirt. That is my plan. You don't approve?
Tyrion knows he must tread carefully here.
You once told me you knew what your father was.
Boom.
Did you know his plans for King's Landing when the Lannister armies were at his gates?
Boom.
Probably not, but he told my brother, and Jamie told me, do you know what wildfire is? He had caches of it hidden under the Red Keep, under the guild halls, of Baylor, all the major thoroughfares.
Boom.
He would have buried every one of his citizens, the loyal ones and the traitors, every man, woman, and child. That's why Jamie killed him.
That is entirely different.
You're talking about destroying cities. It's not entirely different. I'd like to suggest an alternate approach.
Boom. That one hit the balcony. Outside, smoke and fire. Debris flies in through the window. Exterior plateau outside Meereen Day. An elevated plateau outside the city with good views of both Slavers Bay and the Meereenese skyline. Razdal, Moraz, Balicho Penemion, and Yezin, the slaver envoys from earlier in the season, stand with a dozen bodyguards. Dany stands with the Tyrion, Missandei, and Grey Worm, and a dozen unsullied. Razdal smiles at Dany.
Once before I offered you peace. If you had not been so arrogant, you could have returned to your homeland with a fleet of ships. Instead, you will flee Savers Bray on foot, like the beggar queen you are.
We're here to discuss terms of surrender, not trade insults.
The terms are simple. You and your foreign friends will abandon the Great Pyramid and the city of Meereen. The unsullied you stole from Krasnodnis, Monoclos would remain to be sold again to the highest bidder.
Grey Worm watches Yezin emotionless.
The translator you stole from Krasnodnis, Monoclos will remain to be sold again to the highest bidder.
Missandei watches Yezin emotionless.
The dragons beneath the Great Pyramid will be slaughtered.
We obviously didn't communicate clearly. We're here to discuss your surrender, not mine.
The envoys exchange glances and laugh. Oh, they laugh.
I imagine it's difficult adjusting to the new reality. Your reign is over.
My reign has just begun.
Yezin notices something in the distance, a black dot in the sky that grows larger and larger. Soon, all the envoys and their bodyguards see it. Dany never turns to look at the approaching dragon. She doesn't have to look. She only allows the faintest hint of a smile that says, my tyranny's not ended, motherfucker. It's only just begun. Dragon screams across the sky. The Unsullied back up as Dragon lands atop the plateau, causing the envoys to shrink back in fear and their bodyguards to raise their spears. Dany climbs on. No hesitation anymore. She looks as if she was born to ride dragons, and indeed she was. They take to the sky, displaying Dany's control of the greatest war machine the world has ever seen. Exterior skies above Meereen Day. She flies past Daznak's pit, past another landmarks of Meereen towards the Great Pyramid. Exterior base of Pyramid Day. Unsullied, Strongland roll back the giant stone blocking the entrance to the dragon prison and hurry the fuck out of the way. We move in slowly on the dark entrance. Viserion emerges into the daylight, smashing the stone entryway on his way out. Rhaegal follows. They look a lot healthier than they did the last time we saw them. They blink in the strong sunlight and hear their brother's calls overhead. They flap their wings, testing. They haven't flown in a long time. Viserion goes for it, taking 4 quick steps and taking to the air. Rhaegal follows. The first few flaps are halting, but they quickly find their balance again and head toward their mother and brother overhead. Exterior skies above Marine, continuous. Dany watches them fly towards her, crying their delight in their freedom. She and Drogon lead them across the sky toward the bay and the warships. Exterior gates of Marine day. Panicking and disoriented, Kathy, a freed slave, careers into the Sons of the Harpy outside Marine as they continue to mow down any freedmen trying to escape the city. Quickly, she tries to push past them, but she's not fast enough, and they're quite good at butchering unarmed civilians. She's stabbed in the back and falls to the ground before she can get very far. A sound like distant waves crashing on the shore forces the Sons of the Harpy to turn en masse. A tsunami of Tathraki screamers gallops towards them, earning their names with their blood-curdling screams. 40,000 fighting men on horseback, arax raised, and in the front of this blood tide, Dario Naharis leading the charge. We don't see the full attack play out because the conclusion is foregone. A severed mast head spins into the air. Exterior ship day. The sailors and slaver mercenary soldiers aboard stare up fearfully as Drogon and the other 2 dragons head toward their ship. 3 huge dragons circling in the sky above their ship. Too late. The sailors and soldiers realize what horrible career choices they have made. Exterior skies above Marine day.
Dracarys.
Drogon breathes fire upon the warship. The other 2 dragons follow suit. It's an awe-inspiring sight. 3 columns of flame, thick as tree trunks, reducing boat and crew to ash in a matter of seconds. Exterior Slavers Bay day. The rest of the slaver navy gets the message loud and clear. Sailors abandon ship en masse, jumping into the water and swimming for safety wherever they can find it. Weighed down by armor and weapons, many of them go under. Exterior plateau day. The Unsullied on the plateau shift their spears to attack mode in one synchronized move. Grey Worm addresses the envoy's bodyguards.
Nimvares e medreno, vovaliasi cosvo malero, iskasi scoso, os vovalivasi simigo lesi, jim sidori, yaya entot, yajivi kazari.
Beat. The bodyguards glance at each other. They throw down their weapons and run.
Thank you for the armada. Our queen does love ships. Now, the last time we spoke, we made a pact. You violated that pact. You declared war upon us. And though our queen has a forgiving nature, this cannot be forgiven.
The envoys have not quite processed their new reality yet. They look between Tyrion and the Unsullied spearheads pointed right at their hearts.
Our queen insists that one of you must die as punishment for your crimes.
It always seems a bit abstract, doesn't it? Other people dying?
Him! He should die!
Yes, yes, him!
My friends.
He's not one of us. He's an outsider lowborn. He does not speak for us.
Tyrion nods to Grey Worm. Grey Worm approaches Yezin, drawing his dagger.
Please, please.
Grey Worm slashes, and in an impressive feat of stunt work and VFX, cuts both Razdal and Belicho's throats with a single move. The 2 masters fall to the ground dying, clutching at their opened throat. Yezin gasps, almost in a state of shock, as Grey Worm sheaths his dagger. Tyrion approaches Yezin.
Tell your people what happened here. Tell them you live by the grace of Her Majesty. When they come forward with notions of retribution or ideas of returning the slave cities to their former glory, remind them what happened when Daenerys Stormborn and her dragons came to Meereen.
Tyrion pats Yezin on the back and walks away, followed by Grey Worm, Missandei, and the Unsullied. Yezin stands alone with the bodies of Razdal and Bleacho, still not sure what just happened to him. Exterior
Winterfield day. Jon Snow, Sansa Stark, Davos Seaworth, Tormund, young lady Lyanna Mormont, and 3 other northern lords sit on horseback awaiting the arrival of Ramsay and his contingent for a parley. They look beautiful and majestic, sitting there with Winterfell in the deep background. They stare forward, sober, watching the approach of Ramsay Bolton, Lord Karstark, Maljon Umber, and 5 other northern lords riding across the vast field.
You don't have to be here.
Yes, I do.
Ramsay and his northern loyalists arrive, halting in front of Jon and his supporters. Ramsay smiles, cheerful as ever, and addresses Sansa.
My beloved wife, I've missed you terribly. Thank you for returning Lady Bolton safely.
Jon stares back at Ramsay. He would kill him this second if he could.
Now, dismount and kneel before me. Surrender your army and proclaim me the true Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North. I will pardon you for deserting the Night's Watch. I will pardon these treasonous lords for betraying my house.
Jon continues to stare at Ramsay. Ramsay apes Jon's glare before laughing.
Come on, bastard. You don't have the men, you don't have the horses, and you don't have Winterfell. Why lead these poor souls into slaughter? There's no need for a battle. Get off your horse. Kneel. I'm a man of mercy.
Sansa stares at Ramsay. If Jon would kill Ramsay, Sansa would skin him living. Everyone else looks at Jon, waiting for their leader's response.
You're right. There's no need for a battle.
Ramsay grins.
Thousands of men don't have to die. Only one of us.
Now Tormund smiles.
Let's end this the old way. You against me.
Sansa and Davos exchange a look. This wasn't part of the plan. Small Jon grins too. Jon might be the enemy, but Small Jon admires this kid's balls. Jon stares at Ramsay, and Ramsay stares back, neither man backing down until Ramsay finally laughs.
I keep hearing stories about you, bastard. The way people in the North talk about you, you're the greatest swordman who ever walked. Maybe you are that good. Maybe not. I don't know if I'd beat you. I know that my army will be yours. I have 6,000 men. You have what? Half that? Not even.
Aye, you have the numbers. Your men will want to fight for you when they hear you would not fight for them.
For a moment, it looks as if Jon is succeeding at provoking Ramsay. Ramsay doesn't like being called a coward. He wants to skin this impotent bastard, but he restrains himself and smiles, turning to Sansa.
He's good, very good. Tell me, will you let your little brother die because you're too proud to surrender?
How do we know you have him?
Ramsay looks at Sansa. For a long, comfortable beat, he just looks at her, and she returns his gaze. Finally, Ramsay gestures to Small Jon, who reaches behind his saddle. He tosses a shaggy dog's moldering head onto the field between the riders, unmistakably a dire wolf head.
Now, if you want to save your little...
You're going to die tomorrow, Lord Bolton.
She says this with such conviction, such certainty, even Ramsay is momentarily silenced.
Sleep well.
She turns and rides off. Ramsay smiles and shakes his head.
She's a fine woman, your sister. I look forward to having her back in my bed.
He looks over the gathered men facing him.
And you're all fine-looking men. My dogs are desperate to meet you. I haven't fed them in 7 days. They're ravenous. I wonder which parts they'll try first. Your eyes? Your balls? We'll find out soon enough.
He gathers his reins and nods to John.
In the morning then, bastard.
He rides off with his loyalists. John watches him go. Interior John's command tent night. The scene is tense in the lantern-lit tent. John, Davos, Tormund, and the Stark loyalist Northern Lords prepare the battle plan. They stand around a table of which sits a rough map of the surrounding area. Sansa listens in. She is not part of the inner circle, and this should be clear from the blocking.
If he was smart, he'd stay inside the walls of Winterfell and wait us out.
Oh, that's not his way. He knows the North is watching. If the other houses sense weakness on his part, they'll stop fearing him. He can't have that. Fear is his power.
Sansa listens to all this. She knows Ramsay better than any of them, but they're not asking her opinion.
It's his weakness too. His men don't want to fight for him. They're forced to fight for him if they feel the tide turning.
It's not his men that worry me, it's his horses. I know what mounted knights can do to us. You and Stannis cut through us like piss through snow.
We're digging trenches all along our flanks. They won't be able to hit us the way Stannis hit you, with a double envelopment.
He notices the blank look on Tormund's face.
Pincer move.
Still, no sign of recognition from Tormund.
They won't be able to hit us from the sides.
Good.
The crucial thing is to let them charge us. They've got the numbers. We need the patience. Ramsay wants to destroy us. He wants to show the North he's the only true power. If we let him buckle our center, he'll pursue, and we'll have him surround on 3 sides.
Did you really think that would fight you, man to man?
No, but I want to make him angry. I want him coming at us at full tilt.
We should all get some sleep.
Tormund slaps John's shoulder.
Rest, Jon Snow. We need you sharp tomorrow.
Davos nods to John. Everyone but John and Sansa exit. When they're alone...
So you've met the enemy, drawn up your battle plans.
Aye, for what they're worth.
You've known him for the space of a single conversation, and you sit around, making your plans on how to defeat a man you don't know.
John is smart enough not to interrupt.
I've lived with him. I know the way his mind works. I know how he likes to hurt people. Did it ever once occur to you that I might have some insight?
You're right. I should have asked you.
You think he's going to fall into your trap, but he won't. He's the one who lays traps.
He's overconfident.
He plays with people. He's far better at it than you are. He's been doing it all his life.
John has been patiently taking his lumps, but this last insult gets under his skin.
Aye, but what have I been doing all my life? Playing with broomsticks? I fought behind the wall against worse than Ramsay Bolton. I've defended the wall from worse than Ramsay Bolton.
You don't know him.
John calms himself. He doesn't need to fight with his own sister on the night before he battles for their home.
All right, tell me. What should we do? How should we get Rickon back?
We'll never get him back. Rickon is Ned Stark's true-born son, which makes him a greater threat to Ramsay than you, a bastard, or me, a girl. As long as he lives, Ramsay's claim to Winterfell will be contested, which means he won't live long.
We can't give up on our brother.
Listen to me. Please listen to me. He wants you to make a mistake.
Of course he does. What should I do differently?
I don't know. I don't know anything about battles. Just don't do what he wants you to do.
Aye, that's good advice.
You think that's obvious?
Well, It's a bit obvious.
If you had asked my advice earlier, I would have told you not to attack Winterfell until we had a larger force. Or is that obvious too?
When will we have a larger force? We pleaded with every house that would have us. The Blackfish can't have us. We're lucky to have this many men.
It's not enough.
No, it's not enough. It's what we have. Battles have been won against greater odds.
Sansa knows there's no point continuing the argument. She moves towards the tent entrance, where she stops and looks back at him.
If Ramsay wins, I'm not going back there alive. Do you understand me?
I won't ever let him touch you again. I promise. I'll protect you.
No one can protect me. No one can protect anyone.
She exits the tent, leaving Jon alone. Exterior allies encampment night. Davos walks with Tormund through the encampment. A strange mix of wilding tents and tents from the various northern houses represented. Save for the sentries on duty, most of the men sleep inside their dark tents.
You think there's hope?
I've never seen these Boltons fight, and they've never seen the Free Folks fight. So yes, there's hope.
He glances at Davos.
You want to avenge your king, don't you?
It wasn't the Boltons that defeated Stannis. It was Stannis himself. I loved the man. He lifted me up and made me something, but he had demons in his skull, whispering foul things.
They have stopped beside Tormund's tent. The wilding chieftain looks alarmed.
You saw these demons?
What? It's a manner of speaking. Not actual demons.
Huh. Well, you loved that Stannis, and I loved the man he burnt. Mance Rayder. Mance didn't have demons in his skull. He didn't torch people or listen to some red witch. I believed in him. I thought he was the man to lead us through the long night. But I was wrong, just like you.
Maybe that was our mistake. Believing in kings.
Jon Snow's not a king.
No, he's not.
I need a good drink to help me sleep the night before a fight. You want some? I have a jug of sour goat's milk, stronger than any of that grape water you southern twats like sucking on.
Thank you. It does sound delicious, but I'd better keep a clear head. I can never sleep the night before a battle.
So what do you do all night?
I walk, think and walk. Think and walk until I'm far enough away from camp that no one can hear me shitting my guts out.
Tormund laughs.
Happy crafting.
He goes inside his tent and Davos carries on. Interior, Melisandre's tent, night. Melisandre looks into the brazier flames. This activity appears to be more work for her than it was before. Or perhaps it's just that she's approaching it with less unthinking confidence.
My lady?
Come in.
Jon enters.
You weren't at the War Council.
I am not a soldier.
Any advice?
Don't lose.
Jon nods, looking to the flames. He glances at her.
I do. If I fall, don't bring me back.
She studies him.
I'll have to try.
I'm ordering you not to bring me back.
I am not your servant, Jon Snow.
You're in my camp. I am the commander.
I serve the Lord of Light. I do what he commands.
How do you know what he commands?
This is a much more problematic question for Mel than it once was, to be sure. She is not the supremely confident seer she used to be.
I interpret his signs as well as I can. But if the Lord of Light didn't want me to bring you back, how did I bring you back?
Jon has no answer.
I have no power, only what he gives me. And he gave me you.
Why?
I don't know.
She genuinely doesn't know. It has been centuries since she admitted that she doesn't know.
Maybe you're only needed for this small part of his plan and nothing else. Maybe he brought you here to die again.
What kind of god would do something like that?
It's not a pleasant question.
The one we've got.
Exterior encampment dawn. True to his word, Davos has been walking and thinking, unable to sleep. As the light starts to rise in the east, he comes upon a pile of wood nearly snowed over and sees charred timber peeking out from beneath the snow. He stoops to pick it up, a wooden stag, scorched on one side, the one he carved and gave to Shireen. In the distance, the war horns sound. Interior Great Pyramid audience chamber day. Whomever Tyrion is speaking to, he is positively predisposed toward them. Last time we saw each other was at Winterfell, yes? Theon Greyjoy nods, knowing full well what kind of person he was the last time he spoke to Tyrion. Dany and Tyrion meet with Yara Greyjoy and Theon, with a few unsullied keeping them silent company. You were making jokes about my height, I seem to recall. Everyone who makes jokes about a dwarf's height thinks he's the first person to ever make jokes about a dwarf's height. The height of nobility, a man of your stature, someone to look up to. You're all making the same 5 or 6 jokes.
It was a long time ago.
It was. How have things been going for you since then? Not so well, I gather. Can't imagine you would have murdered the Stark boys if things had been going well.
I didn't murder the Stark boys, but I did things that were just as bad or worse.
And he paid for them.
Doesn't seem like it. He's still alive. It was complicated for you, I'm sure. Growing up in Winterfell, never quite knowing who you were, but then we all live complicated lives, don't we? Dany cuts to the chase, speaking to Theon.
You've brought us 100 ships from the Iron Fleet and men to sail them. In return, I expect you want me to support your claim to the throne of the Iron Islands, among other things.
Not my claim, hers.
This surprises both Dany and Tyrion.
And what's wrong with you?
Theon and Yara look at each other. Talk about a loaded question.
I'm not fit to rule.
Well, at least we can agree upon that.
Has the Iron Islands ever had a queen before?
No more than Westeros.
Touché.
Our uncle Euron returned home after a long absence. He murdered our father and took the salt throne from Yara. He would have murdered us if we'd stayed.
Lord Tyrion has told me that your father was a terrible king.
You and I have that in common.
We do. And both murdered by a usurper as well. Will their ships be enough?
With the former master's former fleet, possibly, barely. Something occurs to Tyrion. There are more than 100 ships in the Iron Fleet.
There are. And Euron is building more. He's going to offer them all to you.
So why shouldn't I wait for him?
The Iron Fleet isn't all he's bringing. He also wants to give you
his big cock, I think he said. Euron's offer is also an offer of marriage, you see. You won't get one without the other.
And I imagine your offer is free of any marriage demands?
Oh, I would never demand, but I'm up for anything, really.
Dany tries not to betray that she likes this girl.
He murdered our father and would have murdered us. He'll murder you as soon as you have what he wants.
The 7 kingdoms?
All of them.
And you don't want the 7 kingdoms.
Your ancestors defeated ours and took the Iron Islands. We ask you give them back.
And that's all?
We'd like you to help us murder an uncle or two who don't think a woman's fit to rule.
Reasonable.
What if everyone starts demanding their independence.
But she's not demanding. She's asking. The others are free to ask as well. Our fathers were evil men, all of us here at this table. They all left the world worse than they found it. But we won't.
Danny stands.
We're going to leave the world better than we found it.
Danny descends to meet Yara.
You will support my claim as Queen of the Seven Kingdoms and respect the integrity of the Seven Kingdoms. No more raving, roving, raiding, or raping.
That's our way of life.
No more.
Yara and Theon look at each other. Yara turns back to Danny.
No more.
Yara stands and holds out her hand. Danny is not familiar with this gesture, but she holds out her hand all the same. Yara claps Danny's forearm with her hand like the tough iron-born leader she is. Danny returns the clasp and tries to maintain her regality in the face of bemusement.
Exterior Winterfell, battlefield, Jon's troops. The Battle of the Bastards begins. The battlefield is about 400 meters long, a small valley bordered by 2 hills peaked with trees. At one end is a forest of high trees, the Stark side. At the other is a ridge with a reasonably soft incline that plateaus and stretches out to Winterfell in the distance, the Bolton side. The Stark armies are on their end of the battlefield, arrayed in pitched battle formation. Davos oversees the longbow archers on the flanks, standing behind defensive caltrop-shaped structures. Thousands of arrows are divided into large bundles. Tormund stands at the ready, overseeing the large wildling infantry force that is the Singus biggest contingent on the Stark side. One is a centerpiece of this wildling infantry formation. Other non-wildling infantry stand side by side with the wildlings. And in front, a rank of cavalry organized according to house. We see the banners of Mormont, Mazin, Hornwood. Steam comes from the horses' muzzles. Everyone stands stock still, staring across the battlefield. Jon rides his destrier through the cavalry to stand out in front of his army and looks across the battlefield at exterior Winterfell, battlefield, Ramsay's troops. The Bolton army, with Winterfell in the background behind them. They also have archers, infantry, and cavalry in a similar arrangement to the Starks, only there are noticeably more of all. Crucified, flayed bodies hang head down on Bolton X's, roasting over 8 large bonfires that flank either side of the army, a twisted form of intimidation only Ramsay could have thought of. Banners for the Boltons, the Karstarks, the Umbers, and all the other Quisling and traitors' houses abound. Lord Karstark sits his horse at the front of the cavalry, war lance in hand. The Boltons have far more cavalry than the Starks, 3 ranks to the Stark 1. Small John Umber stands with the infantry, eager to separate some people from their limbs. He takes a huge pull off a leather-covered flask of something very alcoholic. On ground level, a set of horse hooves walk through the Bolton ranks, past infantry, past cavalry. We see him from behind as he emerges at the front of his army. Both the silhouette and the deference he has shown make it clear this is Ramsay. Winterfell battlefield, Jon. Ramsay is very far away from him, but Jon can see him dismount. A figure is just visible between the horses behind Ramsay. Jon dismounts himself and steps forward several paces to get a better look as Ramsay pulls on a rope and Rickon stumbles forward into view, his hands bound in front of him with the end of the rope. We're with Ramsay now as he pulls Rickon alongside him like a dog on a lead. He walks the boy out toward the center of the battlefield, arm around his shoulder. Jon steps forward, watching intently. Ramsay stops about 20 yards from his own lines. He draws his dagger and holds it up for John to see. John, Davos, and Tormund watch, furious and powerless. Ramsay lowers his dagger to Rickon's bound wrists, frees his hands, and resheaths the dagger. He tussles Rickon's hair and speaks to him.
Do you like games, little man? Let's play a game.
He points to John.
Run to your brother. The sooner you make it to him, the sooner you get to see him again.
One of Ramsay's soldiers is approaching him in the background, carrying something.
That's it. That's the game. Easy. Ready? Go.
Rickon starts walking across the battlefield.
No, you have to run. Remember, those are the rules.
Rickon turns and he sees an approaching soldier and what he's carrying, a mean-looking longbow and a quiver of arrows. Rickon turns and runs. Small John and Karstark grin. They like this game. Ramsay takes a bow and quiver from the soldier, who returns the line. He takes his time, nocking an arrow and drawing the bow. On John's side, we see John see the telltale archer pose and motion. He turns and sprints back toward his horse. Ramsay looses the arrow. Rickon runs harder. Back to John. Without stopping, John turns to make sure Rickon is still running. Ramsay's arrow misses Rickon, but not by that much. John reaches his horse and does a front jumping mount, hands on the horse's neck, half twisting in midair to land forward in the saddle. He kicks his horse forward and gallops for Rickon. Ramsay knocks another arrow, taking his time. He draws, he fires. The arrow hits the ground closer to Rickon this time. Rickon runs harder. John digs his heels into his horse, driving it faster. Ramsay really appreciates the high level of sport going on here. He draws and fires again. This arrow sails right over Rickon's shoulder to plant itself in the ground a few yards ahead of him. Rickon tramples it as he runs. John is now closing on Rickon. He leans out from his saddle, reaching down with an outstretched arm, ready to scoop up his little brother. He's so close. He sees the hope in the boy's face and watches it turn to confusion as an arrow punches through Rickon's chest. Rickon falls. Note, his body is closer to the Stark lines than the Bolton lines. John looks down at Rickon. The boy's eyes are still open, his face a fixed mask of shock. He is dead. Tormund shakes his head. He knows John can't hear him, but he says it anyways.
Don't.
Tormund waits with dread for John's response. Davos doesn't. He runs along the cavalry line, telling them all,
Prepare to charge! Prepare to charge!
On Ramsay's side of the battlefield, Ramsay waits. Umber smiles as he drinks, glad that Rickon is dead. John does not look back at his own lines. His gaze remains straight ahead, focused on Ramsay, the object of his mounting rage. Ramsay smiles. Perfect. He walks back to his horse in no great hurry, then nods toward the Bolton archers. The Bolton archer captain yells,
Knock.
The Bolton archers knock arrows.
Draw.
They draw, and Ramsay swings into the saddle of his horse in time to watch.
Lose.
The Bolton archers loose a wave of arrows in John's direction. John charges toward Ramsay, one man against an army. Arrows fall in the space John just occupied, puncturing Rickon's dead body. Davos calls the charge.
Go, go, go! Follow your commander.
The Stark cavalry pushes forward, a great charge across a vast, snow-strewn field, wolf banners flapping. Tormund isn't going to be left out. With a rebel yell, he signals his wildling infantry to follow the cavalry. The wildlings are ready and eager. 1-1 runs forward, and the others come with him. 1-1 run fast. John urges his force forward as a wave of Bolton orders land all around him. On Ramsay's side, Karstock looks to Ramsay. What are we waiting for? Ramsay is holding a psychotic William Wallace, watching the Starks come. Another wave of Bolton arrows lets fly. An arrow drills through the neck of John's horse. The horse whinnies in agony and goes down, throwing John end over end. Ramsay smiles.
Now,
Karstock yells to the Bolton cavalry,
Cavalry, charge!
and out goes Karstock and the Bolton cavalry. Ramsay stays put at a slight elevation as his forces stream forward around him. This allows him to survey his forces and allows us the same from his perspective. On the battlefield, John staggers to his feet. The fall has dirtied him, but he's unhurt for the moment. He stares at what's coming in close profile, and the camera circles behind him to show us what's coming. The entire Bolton cavalry, thousands of them galloping straight for him, lances leveled. John exhales. This is the end, then. He draws long claw and readies himself. The sound of pounding hooves and war cries is so loud, we don't realize we're hearing it from both directions. The Stark cavalry swoops past John a moment before he would be overrun, colliding with the Bolton cavalry. We are with John, who's right in the center of the action as the two cavalry clash. Flashes of the colossal impact, horse on horse, rider on rider.
knock!
The Bolton archers knock their arrows.
Our cavalry is engaged with his.
Yes, and we have twice their numbers. Reducing the fields in our interest. Simple arithmetic.
The small John nods in acceptance. Yep, stands a reason.
Pull! Loose!
On the battlefield with Davos, a captain of the archers shouts to Davos.
Should we loose?
Oh no, we'll kill our own men. Oh, stand down.
The Stark archers lower their bows. On the battlefield, John must use every fiber of his being to dodge and weave and survive the chaos around him as panicked horses careen out of the smoke and fog from every angle in one lovely Wagnerian shot. It's like being caught in the middle of the busiest intersection in town. The Bolton archers fire another barrage and another. All around, Stark horses wild with pain throw other riders, who trip up still more riders. Bolton riders are felled by Bolton arrows as well, but as Ramsay pointed out, the ratio only gets worse for the Starks, as men on both sides are shot off their mounts. John pivots out of the way of one horse, only to walk straight into the path of another, its dead rider bouncing limply in the saddle. He throws himself to the ground, then scrambles to avoid yet another panicked animal. This time, he manages to thrust his sword out and take the rider out just as a new wave of arrows pepper the horse, and it crashes to the ground. From out of nowhere, a Bolton soldier runs at him. John makes short work of him before another soldier appears. Their frenzied sword fight is cut short when a large horse hurtles through the frame, mowing down the unlucky soldier. As John backs up, a giant stallion bears down on him. By the time he sees it, it's too late. And then, out of nowhere, a riderless horse T-bones the first, and the two crash to the ground, leaving a startled but miraculously alive John still standing, sword in hand. Through the smoke from the fires beyond, John begins to see the level of carnage the cavalry charge has created in the form of a pile of bodies, a natural obstruction created by the corpses of men and horses. On the battlefield, Davos has no intention of sitting the battle out.
Yeah, we may as well be taking shits back here. Now forward!
The Stark archers leave behind the safety of their defensive caltrops and move toward the battle. On the battlefield, as more die, the pile of dead men and horses is becoming a feature of battlefield geography, blocking forward motion. On Ramsey's side, Ramsey speaks to Small John.
It's time. Go.
Small John grins. About fucking time. He turns to his infantry.
Who owns the north?
We do.
Show me!
He turns and runs towards the fray, leading by example, and the infantry howls and follows after him. On the battlefield with Small John uses the body pile as a natural divider in the center of the field, directing half his infantry to one side and half of it to the other side. Small John himself, with a bodyguard of 10 men, charges straight up the hill of bodies. On the battlefield with John, covered from head to toe in mud and blood, John frantically fights for his survival. Fog of war flashes. John slashes desperately at the men trying to kill him. Takes a hit, kills the man who scored it. Uses another as a human shield. Catches an arrow in their eye socket. But they are coming thick and fast now, and there's simply too many. John turns to see a Bolton infantryman lunging at him. He dodges out of the way, and the Bolton infantryman presses his advantage, swinging hard on John once, twice, 3 times, until Tormund runs the Bolton through. The Stark infantry has arrived at the battle line. One is with them too. He swats a mounted Bolton and his horse out of the way, and is quickly followed by Davos and the Stark archers, shooting arrows as they arrive. On Ramsey's lines, Ramsey watches the beginning of the double envelopment maneuver unfold. Using the advantage of his height, 1-1 howls a warning at what he sees beyond the body pile. Hundreds and hundreds of Bolton infantry surround the army from either side of the body field. Each Bolton infantryman carries a 6-foot-tall rectangular shield. In a synchronized lethal pincer movement, they use their raised shields to create an impenetrable wall. John, Tormund, Davos, and 1-1 watch as the Bolton infantry complete the circle of shields with a cordon several men deep. Stark archers take some of them out, but the circle starts to close, bringing the archers into weapon range, where they're murdered by the score in their light armor. The circle tightens, forcing the Starks into a smaller and smaller space. It is clear the Boltons have the upper hand, and the Starks are fucked. Davos isn't giving up. He rallies the men around him.
With me, lads. Break their lines.
They push forward toward the wall of shields. On Ramsey's lines, Ramsey is pleased. The success of the envelopment is clear. On the battlefield with Small John, John, and Tormund, the pincer movement has created a quagmire of bodies as the Stark forces are slowly being pushed back by the Bolton phalanx, crushed against each other so tightly it's barely possible to swing an axe without hitting one of your own. Small John Umber is carving through the chaotic crush of the wildlings with his great sword. He's a badass of the First Order, the strongest man on the field who isn't 1-1, and he's in his element. Tormund sees this beast cutting down his people, and he goes to stop him. John is in berserker mode, fighting like a madman, but he's been pushed back toward the body pile and into Small John's path. Slicing through an advancing Bolton, John spins round and locks eyes with Small John. Both men pause momentarily, accepting the challenge. But as John starts to advance, he is knocked to the mud by a swarm of retreating wildlings. He tries to get up, but it's pinned down by the stampede of fighting and men escaping the phalanx. The Small John sees Tormund coming through the crush and welcomes the contest. The bearded wildling goes up against the bearded Northman with a ferocity that would make a Southerner piss his pants. On the battlefield with John, at the epicenter of the scrum, John struggles against a continual force of bodies surrounding him. We see other soldiers squashed by the weight of those above them, adding to the body pile. John gasps for air, struggling to get a hold of anything he can, frantically trying to get to his feet. On the battlefield with Small John, Tormund finally manages to plunge his sword into the Small John's belly. This really pisses the Small John off. He grabs Tormund, lifts him off the ground, and headbutts him so hard Tormund's nose burst open. And then again. Tormund's face is starting to look like a jack-o'-lantern 2 weeks after Halloween. He struggles as best as he can, punching at the Small John's face. But the big man took a sword to the belly. Punches aren't going to faze him. On the battlefield with John, fighting his way out, John clambers to the top of the body pile where he has a perfect view of the carnage. Bolton men in red X helmets grinding up Starks in an atrocity mill. The crush of men desperately trying to stave off the inevitable. The Bolton soldiers have finally worked out how to deal with their giant problem. It requires a force of 2 men per pike, but they surround 1-1 and spear him like a woolly mammoth. 1-1 fights back, but the odds are overwhelming. It's only a matter of time now. The battle is lost. At Ramsay's lines, atop his horse, Ramses takes in the lay of the land. The pile of the dead, the Stark forces enclosed by the body pile, and the Bolton infantry. A tightening circle of flesh and steel that will inevitably kill the Stark forces. Ramsay has a moment of deep contentment. And his contentment turns to confusion as a war horn sounds in the distance. On the battlefield with Tormund, the war horn sounds again, and Small John makes the mistake of looking to its source. The instant of distraction is all the battered Tormund needs to sink his teeth into the Small John's ear. Small John roars with pain as Tormund rips his ear off and releases his grip on Tormund, who grabs a dagger from his belt and pops Small John's eyes like eggs. On the battlefield with John, the Vale horn sounds again. John sees the source of the war horn. The Vale cavalry is emerging from the woods, flying the House Aaron sigil. 2,000 strong, galloping against the glare of the sun as it rises above the treetops. On the battlefield with Ramsay, Ramsay sees the Vale cavalry riding in to ruin his day. At the tree line with Sansa and Littlefinger, high above the battlefield, from the safety of the tree line, 2 spectators watch from horseback, Sansa and Littlefinger. Below them, the Vale cavalry rushes toward the Bolton flank. We see all this from above through the magic of VFX. The Bolton circle dissolves, as if by centrifugal force, as the Vale cavalry approaches. With Ramsay. Ramsay sees all this from his vantage point. He may be furious, but he is smart. He knows it's all falling apart. He turns and looks at John atop the body pile. A beat, where the 2 glorious bastards glare at each other from a distance. John glares at Ramsay. Ramsay doesn't sit and wait for checkmate. He whistles to 2 generals, and he turns to ride for the castle, and his generals follow. On the battlefield, Tormund comes up beside John on the body pile, with 1-1 behind him. In the background, the Vale makes short work of the already weary Bolton army. Together, they see Ramsay getting away. At the tree line, from Sansa's high and wide perspective, we see John, Tormund, and 1-1 tearing after Ramsay with 1-1 in the lead. But Ramsay will get to Winterfell first. Even from this distance, Sansa knows who she's watching, and the situation does not look good to her. Exterior Winterfell courtyard. A reserve force of Bolton men has remained in Winterfell, and 3 of these close the gate behind Ramsay. Bolton archers man the walls. Ramsay makes the best of the situation, speaking to his general as he dismounts. A squire takes his horse's reins and leads it away, just beyond the courtyard arch.
Their army is gone.
Our army is gone.
We have Winterfell. They don't have the men for a siege. All we have to do is wait.
Some commotion on the walls draws Ramsay's attention. A few archers start firing. A loud boom as something hits the gate. The archers manning the battlements over the gate signal for the archers in other positions to come and help them. Boom, 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 boom. The first hole appears in the gate, made by One-One's cinder block fist. Seeing the giant's fist, Ramsay understands. All the archers have come to the battlements, overlooking the main gate, firing down at the giant. Still, the hammering continues as One-One batters down the gate, splintering its ancient wood. Exterior Winterfell courtyard, day. Ramsay backs away, leaving his increasingly terrified soldiers to defend the gates alone. Up on the battlements, the archers rain arrows down upon the unseen giant beyond the wall. We hear One-One roar, and the huge gates rattle with every impact. More holes appear. One-One is breaking through. We see his bloody face through the shattered boards. There's not much fight left in him, but he spends it all here. He starts smashing into the compromised gate with his shoulder. Smash, smash, smash. Archers in the courtyard shoot at One-One through holes in a door. One-One howls and his siege stops abruptly. Silence follows. Is it over? Yells from the archers above suggest the contrary. A series of thunderous footsteps, and One-One finally comes crashing through the gate into the courtyard, covered in so many arrows he looks like a porcupine. One-One falls to his knees, his blood seeping into the dust. Wildling archers and northern infantrymen stream in around him. The Bolton archers have no more cover, and the wildlings are great shots. Bolton archers get a few Stark loyalists, including a hapless Mormont infantryman, but the Bolton archers are not long for this world. Tormund and Jon enter the courtyard. As the wildlings clean up the Bolton archers, Tormund and Jon go to One-One, who's gasping, his lungs penetrated by arrows. And at the far end of the courtyard, an arrow drills deep into One-One's eye, a foot from Jon's face, and One-One collapses to the dirt. Jon and Tormund look to the source of the kill shot. Ramsay Bolton, standing beneath the archway with his defaced direwolf relief, bow in hand, quiver on his back. Jon is wounded, exhausted. Only hate keeps him standing.
You suggested one-on-one combat, didn't you? I've reconsidered. I think that sounds like a wonderful idea.
Jon takes an unsteady step toward Ramsay. Tormund speaks low.
Don't.
Jon doesn't hear him or doesn't listen. He stoops to pick up the Mormont's man's shield and walks toward Ramsay. Ramsay pulls an arrow, knocks, draws, and shoots. Jon catches the arrow with his shield. He lowers his shield and keeps walking and gains focus as he goes. Ramsay pulls another arrow, more hurried this time. He knocks, draws, and shoots. Jon blocks. The arrow punches through the shield as point an inch from Jon's face. Jon keeps walking. Ramsay is frantic now. He pulls the arrow. He fumbles the knock. He draws the bowstring, and Jon's shield catches him on the side of the head, sending a shot wide and dropping him. Jon stands over Ramsay now and beats down on him with the shield, opening his forehead, breaking his nose and his ribs. Ramsay makes a feeble attempt to rise, but Jon is on top of him before he can, pummeling his head with fists and forearms. He has every intention of methodically beating Ramsay to death. but Sansa, Littlefinger, and Davos arrive at the broken gate. Hearing their horses, John turns to see them. He doesn't care about Davos or Littlefinger in this moment. He only looks at Sansa. She looks back at him and at Ramsay. John realizes that Ramsay is not his to kill. He climbs off Ramsay, whose face is now a bloody mess, and rises to his feet. Ramsay looks up at the blurry, silhouetted figure of John, breathing heavily from the exertion of the beating, staring down at him. John walks away as Ramsay blacks out. Winterfell, exterior day, later. The flayed man banners come down. The Stark's wolf head flies over Winterfell once again. Melisandre watches it happen from the covered walkway where Ned Stark once stood. Her prophecy fulfilled. If only she'd been able to see the truth of it earlier. John, the king she was meant to serve, confers with Tormund in the courtyard. On the ground level, some Stark men bring in Rickon's body. Sansa is with them. John steps over to Sansa, and together they look at their dead brother. Exterior, Winterfell archway. In the shadows of the archway, Davos watches Melisandre go. He's sitting on a truth so horrible, he can barely bring himself to believe it. But he has the evidence in his hand, the charred wooden stag. He grips it tight and walks away himself. Exterior Winterfell courtyard. John turns to his men.
We're going to bury my brother in the crypt next to my father.
They watch the men take Rickon's body away. Sansa turns to John. Her mind is not on Rickon anymore.
Where is he?
Interior kennels, night. We're very close on Ramsay as he sits in the dark, his battered head lolling on his neck, covered in blood from his recent beating. We're tight enough, and the room is dark enough that we can't tell where we are yet. We widen out to see that he is strapped to a chair, tightly. He comes to, opens his eyes. An image comes slowly into focus. Sansa, standing several yards away, watching him behind a locked gate. She is lit by a single torch in the wall sconce beside her.
Ah, Sansa. Hello, Sansa.
His dogs whine in response to the sound of his voice, but we don't see them yet. We stay on Ramsay. In a painful daze, he realizes where he is, in the center of the kennel. He doesn't pay the dogs any mind for the moment. He focuses on Sansa as best he can.
Is this where I'll be staying now?
Sansa does not react or respond. She just watches him.
No. Our time together is about to come to an end. That's all right. You can't kill me. Oh, I'm a part of you now.
Sansa still says nothing. His attempts to break her composure are a failure. She speaks with a calm of total certainty.
Your words will disappear. Your house will disappear. Your name will disappear. All memory of you will disappear.
We're looking at Ramsay head on. As his own certainty gives way to doubt, we come round to his profile and see one of his hounds sitting in his cage watching Ramsay. The kennel door is wide open. Ramsay smiles at Sansa.
My hounds will never harm me.
You haven't fed them in 7 days. You said it yourself.
All the kennel cages are open. 9 lean dogs crouch low and smiling, licking their chops, sniffing the air.
They're loyal beasts.
They were. Now they're starving.
The blood on Ramsay's face still is not dried yet, not entirely. Some of it still glistens in the dim firelight. The dog closest to Ramsay stands, pads from his cage, begins sniffing at his former master's bloody hands.
Sit.
The dog does the opposite. He raises himself on Ramsey's chair and starts sniffing at his face.
Down.
From deeper in the kennel, another dog emerges. And
Down.
the dog on Ramsey licks some of the blood from Ramsey's face. It tastes better than anything the dog has ever tasted. Saliva drips from his chops.
Get down.
We move to a vantage deeper in the kennel, behind Ramsey, his back to us, the dog facing the camera. We move toward Ramsey as the hound begins to lick his face with more and more ardor.
No. 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 Down. Down. Down.
We get closer to Ramsey. The hound is switching over. His lips draw back to show his teeth, low growl in his throat. Other dogs trot from their open kennels, moving past the camera toward their long-awaited supper. We move along beside Ramsey and the dog to pass them. They slide toward the edge of the frame. We begin to lose focus on them, just as the animal lunges and digs his teeth into Ramsey's face, and Ramsey screams. And then we're past him, pushing toward Sansa. Once she knows the end is nigh, she turns and walks away. We come round to stay on her face as she walks away, her head and body blocking our view of the carnage behind her. Ramsey screams. His screams become wet wheezes as the dogs go to work on his throat. And through it all, we stay on Sansa as she walks away from him forever, allowing herself the faintest possible smile. End of episode 609.
Ooh. Thank you.
That was a good show.
And thank you for reading us that bedtime story right there. Just
Good job,
Lovely
Kat.
bedtime story.
Oh man, you just
And the
increased
dogs
the
were
drama
fed.
so much.
The dogs were fed and everybody lived
I was
happily
riveted,
ever
Kat.
except Ramsey.
Well, that's
Well.
true, but he's the bad guy. Nobody cares about him.
Yeah, that's the happy ending.
You say this is one of the few moments of the show where you're like, yes, finally something I really wanted.
Yep.
And like poetic justice of him getting eaten by his
Exactly,
own
exactly.
dogs.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So if anyone has to go, let us know. We'll say our goodbyes. But if not, let's get into the discussion. Or wait, I guess maybe we should take a little break. And we need to go to the restroom, get a drink. Well,
A break would be nice.
yeah, break time. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about this.
I don't know
Welcome
why
to
you
Abiskar.
would need one, Kat.
You don't need it. You're ready. Yeah. All right.
We all got a nice little break.
And
I know,
maybe,
we all know.
I could promote my little things when we come back because I didn't do it in the beginning. And
Yeah. Or like, do you need a break, Heather? If not, okay, then yeah, let's all take a break. We'll come back in like 5 minutes. All right.
Fine,
Abiskar, we just finished reading the script. So now we're going to do the after discussion. So if you've seen the show, if you've
Hi,
read the script,
Abiskar.
I've seen whole 8 seasons.
yeah,
Binge watched all of them.
yes. So soon, like, bring your thoughts on this script or this version or how it applies. But 5-minute break.
After the break.
Right.
Well, I'd say the last half of the script was action and descriptions.
I told you there'd be a lot this time.
That was quite amazing.
Hmm. But that's also good to discuss when it comes to scripts and stuff about how much action do you put in? Is it okay to do a full-on battle scene and go for 20 pages of just action and stuff? And
Hello, friends.
hello. So what do you guys think
Hello.
about that?
I'm
Did
back.
this
You
work
mean
the
in
way it
terms of
was?
filmmaking or in terms of us reading it?
I'm in terms of production, if you're writing a script to be turned into a show or a movie or something.
It was a worthwhile lesson.
I
Like
was
to see
curious to
the
see if
setup.
the page was going to be like, and then there's a battle. And then like
Yeah.
fill in the blank, the battle guy will fill that in later.
Yeah, they'll previs it all
Same
out.
here.
They'll make it cool.
So,
Yeah.
and then there was a battle. The end.
You know, I wonder what was going through the author's mind when they created this. I think it was a book first, wasn't it?
It was a
Yes.
book first.
Yeah, it was
I'm
a
not
book
sure
first.
if
But
this
the-
scene was in.
It's
This-
not.
I
I
don't
don't
think
know.
it-
No.
You can get away with a lot more graphic stuff in books than you can in television, I think.
Just to do a bit of filling in.
Yes, please.
By the point of this episode, they'd gone past the source material.
I think the
Yeah.
source material only went to season 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember what season was season 5, but it was like right where Jon Snow died was
Yeah.
when the last book ended. Yeah, spoilers. But he did mention, "Hey, leave me dead this time."
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of material, I do have some things to share.
Oh, yeah.
Segue.
Can I go back a
Segue
second to
time.
the battle real quick?
What?
I'm sorry.
Oh, we'll pick back up on that after Aaron. We'll come right to you after Heather.
Okay.
Yeah, segue time. A couple of things came out. Like I produced some mini series and things over the years, and one of them is called Cooking with Heather. And one of the things I released was actually over Easter weekend, the Saturday of Easter weekend. It was episode 56 of Cooking with Heather, called Chocolate Almond Halva. Halva is a Middle Eastern dessert. It honors my past and current personal history because my biological father, spent time in the Middle East living and working as an oil rigger.
I remember you
And my
advertising that.
stepfather likes halva. So I decided
love
to make
halva.
it from scratch after finding a recipe.
I saw.
And what?
I remember. I saw you advertise that.
Yes, it actually turned out really good. It tastes like a peanut butter treat.
Well done.
Thank you. And the other thing
Is that on
was,
YouTube?
What?
Is that on YouTube?
It is on my YouTube channel. Yes, and the other thing is I wrote another piece for Star Trek Quarterly for the spring 2023 edition, and that piece is called Caregiving, A Journey of Grace and Healing. It's on page 18 of the spring 2023 edition of Star Trek Quarterly, and it talks about the struggles of caregiving and the graces and the lessons that can come from it. I compared the experience I had as a caregiver to my biological father when he was dying with cancer to an episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine called The Wire.
Cool. If you want to put any links to that in the comments when
I
this
will.
posts.
All right.
But
Thank you for
anyway, we
sharing that.
shall discuss the show now. The floor is everybody else.
Yes, Aaron, bring us back to the battle.
Oh, I just wanted to bring up something that I think, Heather, you just asked, like, where did they come up with the idea for this battle? I just
No, the
read
Game
it.
of Thrones. Like it's so.
Oh, the whole show.
I just
Okay.
watched the first thing
Oh.
today, and I'm like, where in the heck did all this craziness come from?
Actually, this I actually know. It was based on the War of the Roses in England.
Oh.
And then going back to this particular battle scene, I think I just read a piece of trivia today before this that maybe Kat can speak to, because apparently this whole wall of bodies was inspired by a Shakespeare, Henry V.
I was thinking the same thing too. The exact same thing, Aaron.
Yes, this
That's
battle
yeah.
is very similar to the Battle of Agincourt with Henry V in the 1420, excuse me, year 1420. So in that battle, he had a hill with a forest and a hill with a forest, and the army on one side and the other army on the other side. And just like in this one, Henry V had only one rank of cavalry, one rank of infantry, and all his archers were in the trees on the sides. The other army was full of, they had lots of cavalry, they had lots of infantry, but they put all their cavalry in the front because the cavalry were where all the lords were, and they all wanted the glory of capturing and killing. So they put them in the front. And in that battle, the forces went first, and they were, because it rained the night before, the whole battlefield had been so muddy that the horses on the French side, opposing Henry V, had just pretty much clogged up and just made this huge wall of massive, animals and men. And then the infantry, some of them came forward as well, but they didn't, because all the lords were in the front, not as many of the infantry came forward because there's no one to lead them. And then the very last row of archers at some point decided to pretty much just leave the battle because they're like, we're not going in there. But when you have horses and armor and mud and you're all sunk down in there, there are people that were like just drowning in mud. I mean, they couldn't get out because metal armor, as you may know, when it gets muddy and wet, you can't get up off the ground from it. It just sucks you in like those little shoes, and trying to pull your shoe out and your foot comes out, but the shoe doesn't, right? So this battle is very, very similar, except that the losing side in this battle should have been John's forces, what we consider the good guys. And the bad guys instead came out with their shields and made this nice pincer movement. And just because you've got the forces on one side, the men right here, and Ramsay's army surrounding them, just have, all you gotta do is put your shields and move them forward and forward and forward and forward and forward. And they should have lost if Littlefinger and his men hadn't come back and broken up all those shields. So
if you can see behind me, my virtual background is the circle of shields.
Yeah,
with
exactly.
the John Stark's army caught in the middle, and then the Vale cavalry coming in to save them and break up the circle.
And the only reason Henry V won is because not only were the French stuck in the middle of the battlefield there, but his archers were better. They had the English longbows who could reach a really long distance. So you could, once they were in there, they could just shoot them all down. So instead of having he didn't have the men to bring those shields in like you have in your circle down there. He just had archers just shooting into it, like shooting fish in a barrel, sort of that expression.
You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the kid's death, Arthur and King John. Poor kid got killed just so another tyrant could have his way. That is so sad. I was in that play during COVID. We performed it over Zoom, and that's how I know about it. So.
And you guys see how much they know about Shakespeare. So, yeah, if people want more Shakespeare, is there somewhere they can go to watch that?
They can come visit me at Two Households in Fair Corona, which is a Facebook group. And we read on the first, third, and fifth Saturdays of the month, usually, except for a few holidays. And we read every Shakespeare play and a few other ones that aren't Shakespeare too, but mostly Shakespeare. And that's Two Households in Fair Corona.
I just saw the movie recently with Robert Pattinson. He played the French king, and that other famous kid played the Henry V. What was it called? The movie The King. I think it came out like last year or the year before, and it was Henry V, and that had that whole battle scene that you just discussed.
I saw a statistic today that said they shot 86 hours of footage for the 1 hour battle.
Wow.
I saw that was 26 days to shoot.
How many
Yeah,
hours?
it took over a year.
86 hours of footage.
Oh, 86 hours of footage. Wow.
Wow.
I believe it.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, they don't all use that. They take a lot of footage and a lot of it ends up on the floor. Like, what is it? The cutting room floor, the word is, Roger? I can't remember all the terms.
Yes, cutting room floor.
But because they have to edit a lot out and they don't like the takes. And sometimes they put, like, when I was on Angel Dust, I shot like 5 hours and they only used like 30 seconds of it. Just, I don't know why, just cheaper, I guess.
No, it's cool behind the scenes thing to get it right. And with a battle, like they're gonna have multiple cameras, all of them getting footage like during the same actions, and so they can cut between them. Maybe have a better angle. Maybe use that. Maybe that. Roger, you were
Well,
going
it's
to say
just
something?
about budgeting because I mean, you got to like you use like big group shots and stuff because I guess it might be cheaper to do it things that way. I'm not quite sure.
But this
Can you
one,
imagine
I
if
don't
they
think.
had? Oh, I just was sorry. I'm here eating. Can you imagine if they had left in the 5 hours of footage though?
People would
It
have
would
watched
make
it.
no
Yeah.
sense. Or the 86 hours of footage of filming for the
Yeah.
battle.
This one I don't.
Somebody had to watch it.
This one I say maybe, yeah, the editors, well, the assistant editors, but like this one, like the what was I gonna say? I don't know. All right,
Like
next.
the sheer scale of how big it is, right?
Oh yeah, like Game of Thrones,
Yeah.
like talking about budget, they spent a lot of money and
Yeah.
spending 26 days on a single battle, that almost seems like unheard of. Like,
Yeah, they said
Well,
by
I mean,
this
it
because
makes
it's season
sense to
6 they could
me.
do it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Season 1 and
don't
2
they
they
use
didn't have
stock
the budget.
footage as well though for big battles and stuff? Don't they use recycled footage for bigger battles to save money though?
Not
Some could on different
necessarily.
things, but
I
I
mean,
think it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Ashok.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, like, well, if you break down the Battle of the Bastards itself, and you look at like all of the shots and just knowing how much time it takes to set up a shot at different angles and such,
Oh, it
it's
takes a
just
lot
like,
of time.
yeah. So when you break it down, because we just saw like Littlefinger Sansa like at the tree line, this person here and that person there. So it makes sense when you break down how long it takes to shoot a moment in a day.
I saw something that they had to like just filming the horses charging. They had to do that 6 or 7 times, and every time the horses charged, they had to go back. They had to remake the battlefield with the snow, so it didn't look like it was
Yeah.
trod on.
Wow.
Back
Yeah.
to
Did it
one.
again.
Back to one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, like one
Back to
single
one
scene,
an hour later.
one single
Yeah, it
scene
takes
can
a
take
while.
up 5 or 6 hours. Seriously.
Well, the more people there are, the longer it's going to take anyway. When you have like those big scenes back to one, it's going to take an hour.
Yeah, because you have to make as you said, like it has to look like horses never trampled here.
Like
Yeah,
if there's
wow.
animals or weather or COVID, you have to factor everything in, or if there's a medical emergency or a camera battery dying or something like that, right?
And you
And
really can't use stock footage because of the costumes. The costumes are unique to each army. And can you imagine
That's
having to do
true.
the laundry for this one after?
Yeah, I don't know,
Just-
Roger, am I talking at my butt here? I'm just going by what I remember from my experience.
yeah.
you
Yeah.
gotta
And
reset
I
the
do
slave
have,
man, you gotta reskin the next guy.
You have what, Roger?
No, it had something to do with the French and the English. I don't know if you ever heard this, where the middle finger came from. Do you know where that
have
came
not.
from? Well, the French were really good at archery, right? So when the English caught anyone, the Frenchmen, they would cut off their index finger. So they couldn't have. So the salute would be this, but when they were missing their index finger, now it became this. I don't know if that's totally true, but I heard that a long time ago and I believed it.
I'd tell you
like
a
it.
similar story about why you stick your pinky out when you drink tea.
and what is that?
I have
Oh
not
my
fact checked
gosh.
it, but apparently Anne Boleyn, who was the second wife to Henry VIII, had a little stumpy pinky on her, like a sixth finger that came off her hand.
A 6
So
finger
when
woman.
so when people were drinking tea in England, they were sticking their finger out to make fun of her because nobody liked
Mhm.
her, and it stuck.
Yeah. You killed my mother. Prepare to die.
And you know where the toast came from, right? When you toast.
Well, I know the Richard Scarry version.
I thought it was scaring ghosts away or whatever. Where is it from, Roger?
No. I mean, you all know this from Shakespeare and the old days.
Because I know
Because of
didn't
the
they have
poison,
reading
they would
books?
put poison. You would have to toast before drinking because usually there would be poison if someone didn't like you. So
if they didn't drink, you didn't drink.
right.
Or do you
That's
just
why I like it.
aggressively
You look
toast
at
so
them in
your
the
drink
eyes and
mixes
like-
with theirs?
Right, exactly. Something like that.
Oh.
I really liked this episode. Actually, it was obviously they shot it. There were some different things. when if you watch it and when Ramsey, every time the archers, he would yell, it wasn't written here, but he would say loose, and then the arrows came, and every time he yelled loose, each time he yelled loose, it was just that more cringing, because all the Starks were just getting like shot to death, basically. But I thought that was really good when they added that in from not in the script. Whoever the director was, I thought it really added to that horrifying scenery. So that's something that I liked.
My friend to get me to watch that. He has all that on Paramount Plus, and we'll just watch it.
One aspect I really like that the directing and editing add to it is when the younger brother was trying to run across the field and Ramsey's shooting at him, like on the third one, they play with our expectations of what we're used to seeing in TV shows and movies. And on this third one, they get real close to the arrow. They get real close to this. They get real close to the brother. They have the arrow flying. So you're like, this is the death shot. This is the one he's dying on. And that one misses him. And you're like, and then they get you on the next one. So they know what you expect by showing you these things, and they use it to twist it on you.
And they don't show Ramsey shoot that last arrow. You're just full on Rick on, and then boom, arrow through the boy. Yeah, that really got you.
And that's
I like how there's two battles in this script. There's two wars going on, but the first one, they're like, oh, we know, we don't even need to show this battle because obviously they're going to win. Then they got to the other one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I liked one too. I obviously they have to do that. I guess, the scene, and then I've been on sets where they'll put a large green screen just for certain things. So I was just curious if they did use a green screen on the actual set. That's my I would ask that question.
Probably. I know they used a giant, like a 17-foot pole with a tennis ball on top or something like that for the dragons.
Okay.
Looking right here, it looks like they did. Yeah, it's there's green screen. Here, I'll share the screen real quick just at these. All it is just YouTube, but you can see there.
Okay. Well, we can't actually watch those because then it'll get tagged.
We could, but I'm not saying we're going to. Just the images themselves will say that what Roger supposed was right.
Oh, okay.
That's all I'm saying.
I wonder if any of this is actually filmed in New Zealand, because I know it's cheaper to film there tax-wise.
Most of this is Ireland, I believe.
Yeah, this was in
Ireland and Croatia.
I had some friends doing previs that went over to Ireland for a while to work on it.
Oh, awesome.
I feel like I've been to like 3 different places where they had Game of Thrones tours, and one of them was Northern Ireland.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. What did you guys think about parts in the script that the writer is putting stuff in there just for the reader? Like they added little quips or whatever. They're like, I don't know if we remember that. I forget some of them, but
yeah.
So I found it interesting when John was there surrounded by people and horses. They said like being in the center of like heavy traffic. So it just kind of takes you out of like, oh, we're making modern references to it. I found it interesting that their choice of words for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, busy intersection just didn't cut it.
Yeah.
For me. I was like, what? I got to that part. I'm like, no. Maybe, maybe freeway interchange, but not just a busy intersection. That wasn't scary enough. I mean,
yeah, I agree with that. So I found it interesting that they used that, but I also felt like it wasn't like a proper representation until the two horses, like they made the reference of the horses T-boning each other. So that's when I started to wonder, like, are they trying to build up on this traffic reference of saying, oh, we're in busy traffic, and now the horses are T-boning. And so to the audience, it's something that we're familiar with seeing daily traffic, but now we're applying it to Game of Thrones.
Yeah. And I guess the point that can be made about this is different than a script you're writing yourself to try and sell, and people have to read. This is an ongoing show, so they just have to write it to get the point across for themselves and the directors and the actors. They don't have to, not that they're not going to try and do it the best way and get that across, but I think like you're saying, Ashaki, like, or everyone, like this is, I guess, something familiar to them.
I found it interesting, having just seen the first episode today, that Daenerys was so much more comfortable in her marriage than she was in the first episode, because she had just married, I can't remember the name of the husband now, shoot.
It's Khal Drogo.
Dothraki?
Yeah, she was so much more comfortable in her role as wife and queen and such like that than she was, because I remember watching the first episode where she was so reluctant and so insecure, but now she's very confident as to who she is now and what that means and to what kind of power she has, versus the first episode where she's just so reluctant to even
Yeah, she goes
become
through a lot
who
of
she
change.
is.
A nice big arc.
And try not to give away too much of that. Like during her discussions, she hints on two different things. One, we're going to leave this world better than our fathers did. But also right before that, she was talking about possibly like tearing down the cities and killing everyone like to the ground and stuff. So
and getting rid of slavery. I mean, I noticed when I first started watching it, there was a lot of slavery and people seemed very comfortable, and slavery was accompanied by wearing collars and having like lack of clothing and stuff like that. Yes, I noticed that. It's very Korean, almost, if people know what Koreanism is.
Jacob, I see your reference that you just brought up, and I thank you for noticing that, because I hadn't really noticed that arc of her having those two sides.
Right, cool.
Which everyone else here will know except Heather, probably.
Well, I mean, I watched the
That's
first
true.
I watched the first episode, and I noticed how her brother initially married her off because he wanted the money and the power that came with marrying off. He didn't seem to care about her, so she eventually probably had to realize that I have to learn how to care about myself and make the best of the situation that I have.
Mm-hmm.
If I've got that right, please let me know, because I'm
Yes,
not
you did.
sure.
And hiding, like going back to the funny things in the script, there's one line I liked about Daenerys that just found, like, a smile that says, "My tyranny's not ended, motherfucker." I like those little hints, but like, you know what that face looks like. You know how to act to that.
See, so yeah, okay, so it
Yes.
gives the actors how to act. So you guys
Yeah.
like that, and it's a little added thing. there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else about the scripts that you guys liked or thought was different or unusual?
I just think that if you really watch the whole series, I think it gets better. I think it gains more steam. I think that the writers really piled on the conflict and obviously climaxes last season. But I think overall, as a series, as a production, it's a huge. It's one of those epic series that no one ever does. There's no other series that you're shooting in three. Well, I think the last one was Ireland, Spain, and Croatia. And if you watch, I think there's some documentaries where in Ireland you go to the production studios and it's just massive, the costumes and everything like that. But it's just a huge undertaking, and these two guys, Benioff and DB Weiss, were. They take all not that they take all the credit, but they really, just from a business standpoint and a creative standpoint and giving the audience what they want to see and experience, I think they really, it's one of my favorite shows besides Stranger Things and maybe Breaking Bad in the last dozen years. But yeah, I really enjoyed watching the whole thing. So, but this one was obviously a retribution for who. And I'm glad that we got to see that. So
That's awesome.
I think it's really interesting to go back and watch after having watched the series to its final,
Mhm.
then to go back and watch all of the things that you didn't miss that they had put in there about specific characters all the way through that you then pick up on after seeing the end and how it finished.
Yeah, you and Jacob now making me want to rewatch the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, now that you're
Same
bringing
here.
this, now that you're bringing this up, I'm now thinking of Sansa because I've only seen a little bit of Sansa in the first episode. I believe she was just a youth, basically a young girl wanting a future with her family. And now she's this girl fighting with, I believe, her half brother. It's her half brother, right, John?
She goes through a very hardening
I'm
arc
so
too.
intrigued. I'm so intrigued to see how she grows from the young girl with her family to what she is now. It's so intriguing. I'm gonna have to beg my friend, like he's gonna have to put his Paramount Plus on the Discord, and we're just gonna have to watch it. That'll
It's
have to be our
HBO.
thing.
I think every character,
It's
every
HBO,
major character has a huge arc throughout the whole thing. And we're in this is the episode 69 by now, right? And what you're saying, Jacob, about the script, I mean, they're still putting in stage directions for those characters that we've seen since episode 1. I mean, that Tyrion shaking when the castle gets hit and Daenerys doesn't flinch. I mean, those directions are right in the script, and we know those characters will react exactly that way, but they still say it in the script, and I really like that.
Well, she's like basically saying, well, I'm gonna get what I want, even if I have to smash your castle to bits and you with it, I don't care.
Heather, I'm just warning you that like these characters, these women become very hard because they go through a lot of trauma.
Yes. And it is a lot of trauma. And so like with Sansa, so I really wanted to play Sansa because when I saw the first season of Game of Thrones, and then I read the series while waiting for season 2. And I did not care for that character until I read the book. And then of course, as the series I'm not spoiling anything, but it's interesting to see how this show progressed with specific characters and how they were able to translate that really well from like the book into the series. And then when you watch everything and going back, it's interesting to see like just how much work they really put into it.
I think all of the characters are like the characterizations in the show throughout are just amazing. I'm a big fan of this show.
I am too.
I might become a big fan of this show. I was actually very intrigued when my friend and I watched it this afternoon. I was like, he was like saying, oh, it's gonna be graphic. You can ask me whatever you want. But I was so like caught up in it. I maybe asked him 5 or 6 questions. I was just watching because I was very
brutal.
What?
It's very brutal.
It's a very good like
well, so is my
water
life,
cooler
but
show.
it's like I lived it, but I'm not bothered by that. I was just bothered by the ending. I mean, why did they push that little kid out of the window? I have to see what happens next.
I agree with you.
Characters, Ashaki, and
everyone who talks about the characters, the arcs are just amazing. I mean, Arya and even Jaime Lannister. I mean, to go Jaime and Cersei, and I mean, oh my God, the shame thing was I loved the shame thing. That was just brilliant. But
and that's a moment that like sticks with you. Now everybody is always like shame.
Yeah, there's all those memes.
Praise the Lannisters in front of me. They pushed a child out of the window.
But I missed the Starbucks coffee on the table. I missed that one.
Spoilers. I'm just kidding.
Same here.
They went back and took it out. So it's
Did
not
they?
there anymore. Yeah, they did.
Oh.
Yeah, it became a meme where it was like the coffee cup watch has ended.
I think in Lord of the Rings, you could see a truck driving in the distance somewhere in New Zealand, and in one of the Lord of the Rings films. Yeah, you could see like this trail of dust and this truck going Oh, we missed that. That got into the shot.
Uh,
I always find it really interesting too that in this particular episode, I mean, all the episodes have some really horrible things that happen to people, but in this one, it's very, very physically horrible. Whereas in many of the other episodes, it's very, I mean, there are some physical horrible things that happen in the other ones too, but I mean, this is just full on, just, like a massive, horrible football game gone wrong, right? It's just, but the other ones are very psychologically horrible too. And there is some psychological stuff in this one as well, especially near the very end with the Sansa and the dogs and Ramsay. But most of it is just pure, plain, simple physical horror. When you see them being smashed with all those bodies piling up and with the dragons on the ships, there's far less psychologically evil people going on in this thing to a large extent. I mean, it's still in this episode, but it's far more physical.
Yeah,
And like a reverse arch for you, Heather, like throughout this series, Melisandre is a very confident woman. And in this episode, she doesn't know what the shit to do.
So you can watch to find
Lost
out.
her face.
Is she like a holy woman or somebody, a priest connected
she's
to
like
God?
a sorceress.
She's the red woman.
Like from
Yeah,
God or something.
She
she
serves the Lord of Light.
Yeah.
So it's basically God.
Yeah, the Lord of Light is
that's questionable.
So
Hey, God.
in that world of the Game of Thrones, there are multitude of gods. This group of people worship the Faith of the Seven. Melisandre worships the Lord of Light. All the Northern men worship the old gods.
Oh, thank you.
I have to watch more.
This episode specifically too, the soundtrack is so amazing.
Yeah, I have
What
to.
about
watch
this?
more. I have to whine at my friend. I have to beg my friend John to literally. Yes, my friend's name is John, by the way. Fun irony.
Jon Snow.
Well, I don't know what his last name is. He's never told me. It
By
could
the
be
way,
Jon
Angela,
Snow.
it was very fun that Jon Snow was Scottish. What was that Scottish? A
That's what
Scottish
I was
Jon
thinking.
Snow?
little bit.
Angel was trying her accents.
Yeah, I know.
That northern accent is very specific and very
I
so
will-
close
Well,
to
along-
Welsh and
I wanted to practice an English accent for this, but I sadly didn't get around to it.
Well, sometimes when I'm talking, I slip into a European or English accent. I don't know why.
I do Southern
I've done it for
American.
acting as well. I don't know why. My mom says I should really stop it and sound more Canadian, but I can't.
Well, that's when you respond with what's going on, eh?
I can't. I sound tacky when I try to sound more normal, but I really can. I sound more European and British and all this other stuff.
Well, then just sound like you.
Well, then you're
Yeah.
perfect for high fantasy.
Yeah. All I need
Everybody
is a sword.
inexplicably
Somebody buy
sounds
me
British.
a sword, please, just because a plastic one, it looks cool.
I've been listening to the accents of the characters in the shows, and it's hard to place exactly where each actor or their character maybe accent is based on. I mean, some of it sounds a lot more Scottish, some of it sounds a bit more Irish, some of it, sounds a bit more Eastern European even at times, especially if you go across to the desert areas and whatnot. But yeah, they're just such subtleties in there when you listen to them all put together.
Do you
Yeah,
guys like that? 'Cause,
reminds
I would like the idea of them mixing them that we couldn't tell where they're from because it is some other world. It's not our world, so that they wouldn't have to be the regions we're familiar with. Like,
That's
It's sort of
true.
aligning to
Yeah.
like Dorne is sort of Spain or Spanish.
mhm.
Yeah, that's the vibe
Yeah.
that I got.
Yeah.
And then I remember like when HBO was kind of doing behind the scenes between season 1 and season 2, they said that everyone was trying to model their accent from Sean Bean's for as far as like the Stark children. So whatever
Oh.
interpretation of that, I guess that's what we got.
Like
mean,
this
Jon Snow
reminds me of
sounded the
Lord of
most
the, this
northern.
reminds me of Lord of the Rings, and Tyrion is so funny. Like Tyrion was in episode 1, and he basically tells Jon, "You're a bastard, aren't you?"
Yes,
It
such a
was
great
Oh,
just
character.
so
Tyrion,
funny.
Peter Dinklage is, I believe, is the only American actor. Yeah, actually, he went to a high school in my area, Del Barton School, which is like 40 grand a year. But to my knowledge, I think he's the only American actor in this production.
What was
It-
Jamie
it's-
Lannister? Wasn't he like
Is
Scottish or Swedish or
I
something?
thought
Isn't
I thought he was like
Missandei?
Icelandic.
Or
or something?
Icelandic? Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
he's
like both
Icelandic.
Tyrion and Jamie sound the fakest doing their British accent.
Yep. Please tell me if I'm wrong, but isn't Missandei as well?
She's
I
she's
don't
got an
know.
interesting accent. I don't know where she's from.
I'll have to look that up
Who?
later.
Oh, what's her name?
Oh, I was thinking
who-
Melisandre too. She's got a weird accent.
I thought when you said Miss Sandy, I thought you meant Melisandre.
Oh no, she's I think she's Irish.
Oh,
But no, Missandei.
Miss Sandy, I believe she's English.
I'll have to look that up later.
Oh, the English UK have so many different accents depending on where in the UK you're from. It's incredible.
Yeah, it seems
Yeah.
like they modeled the wildlings on like a Cockney British.
That's further north.
Yeah.
Well, except for
And
Egret.
the Starks, which are based.
Right.
I mean,
You know
if
nothing,
look-
Jon Snow.
Yeah, well, if you look at the,
Yes.
we talked at the beginning about it, very similar to the War of the Roses. And if you
yes.
look at the map of the Seven Kingdoms and you look at the map of England, they're very parallel. So that the Starks would be the Yorks in the War of the Roses, and that's like Northumbria,
makes
right,
sense.
just below Scotland. So they have a very Scottish sounding accent, whereas down in London that would be King's Landing. So they're going to have a much more Londonish accent, and the Wildlings would have Cockney because that's as far north in Scotland practically as you could go, without being over in like Shetland. And so I thought the accents were deliberate by the directors to make us think that they're in those parts of England, and the sea people, the Iron Islands, right? Those would be either the Welsh or the Irish, depending on how far west you want to go. So
Well, it's
That
always
sounds
fun
reasonable.
trying.
That is
Oh,
good.
it's always fun trying to put on an accent for a performance.
Yeah, you guys are awesome at it. I wish I could do it.
Jacob,
Oh,
you
I
can.
think Keisha Castle Hughes, who plays Obara, she's from, I think,
New
New
Zealand.
Zealand. Yeah, because she was in Whale
Oh.
Rider. She
Yes.
was the little girl in Whale Rider.
Sweet.
from what I remember.
So I don't know. Would you guys say these are some like pieces of the? What would you guys say are themes of this episode? Because there's two little things. I don't know if they're the full theme of the episode or if you even say that. But I'll let you guys answer
Trying
first.
to fight for family, protecting family, fighting for the
Yeah,
ones
there's-
you love.
The
Fighting for
the
what
subjugated
you
fighting back, because you've got the free people fighting
Mhm.
against the masters in Marine, and then you've got Sansa getting her revenge on Ramsay.
Yeah.
Or like
One-
overtaking what used to be yours.
believe in. Fighting for what you believe in.
Oh, just the little kid though, it reminds me so much of Arthur and King John. They both die unfairly and unjustly. It's so sad.
What
I would go
one
to
little?
say it's the nature of kingship. I mean, what makes a king and who deserves to be the king? I mean, whether it's
Mhm.
Daenerys trying to get the Seven Kingdoms or whether it's Jon trying to take back Winterfell, and they even talk about Jon is not a king. They bring that to a particular, they point it out. And I
Yep.
think that's a huge theme is what is a king? And that's also the theme of
That's
Henry
true.
V.
But here's the
Yeah,
thing
and
though,
it's
like
a-
Ramsay didn't care that the kid was gonna die, nor did John care that Arthur was gonna die. They just knew that the kids had to die in order for their missions to be accomplished.
So they care in that way that they want them to die, rather.
They
that's how
find
they care about it.
amusement in a child's death, and that's the most horrific thing in the world.
Yeah.
For
And-
somebody who's read the book, I think Roxanne, you said, or Ashaki, you said you read the
Aaron?
series.
Yes, I read the series as well.
I'm wondering, like, it seems like this episode also killed Rickon because Rickon wasn't really being used much in the series, and they kind of had to tie up that loose end because they weren't really doing anything with him.
Yeah,
But does
I
he
mean,
do more in the series?
not really, without going into like spoilers potentially. Like in the series, it's like he kind of like disappears in a sense. Like you see that he's like wandering around in all of that, but he's not really doing anything while he's wandering around. So there's kind of no point in seeing him explore the wilderness.
If I may,
Yeah.
Without going into spoilers, because who knows what'll happen to him in the books. He in the books at this moment is on an island.
So he's not killed by Ramsey, is what we in the
Not
books.
yet. There's a lot of crap in the north that is at play. Like these group of people are trying to stab Ramsey in the back, and this group of people want to go and get Rick on so he could be the Lord of Winterfell, and this group of people is taunting Jon Snow, who is dealing with a bunch of crap up at the wall, and then he got stabbed, but not the point. No, the books have a lot more going on.
Yeah, I mean, in relation to that, the books do have a lot more going on overall, and it has a lot more going on as far as like because there's a part where trying to remember. I think we did talk about. There's a part where Melisandre references supporting the right king. I think it is right in this script.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so without going into specifics, over the course of like the books that are released, there's like a lot of people who are trying to claim to be the right king. And so it's like, I want to say whatever storylines of Rickon we do see kind of gets jumbled into that whole group of people saying who's the right king. But they don't really explore all of that in the show. And so they don't, at least they don't explore it as fully as they do in the book. And so that's why I think they also are just like, we're not really going to talk about all of this. And that's where Rickon is most likely like seen. So we're just not going to show him that much.
Those that read, oh, go ahead, Kat.
Vicky,
Oh.
have a good night. We
Oh,
missed
have
you.
a good night.
Hey,
Oh, good night,
Vicky.
Vicky.
great job.
Yeah.
Oh, good night.
Good
And
night.
I was going to follow up on Ashaki's comment about, who is the right king? That's the whole theme of the War of the Roses, which near the end of the War of Roses, there are two little boys, the two princes in the tower, supposedly murdered, right? And we see that, I always figured Rickon was one of those princes in the tower. Is he supposed to kind of represent
Rickon on
and
Breakfast,
that is
the
the
youngest.
one that gets murdered by Richard III.
What also kind of sucks, and it's going to be interesting how when he'll play out in the books, is because at the start of the books, Rickon's 3, and by the time he gets separated from the rest of his family, he's like what, maybe 4 or 5. So he's kind of growing up being feral.
That too. Yeah.
So I'm quite intrigued on how he's gonna play out.
Those of you who have read the books and watched the show, I know you guys are all saying how much you love the show. What do you guys have one you like more than the other? Are they pretty pair even?
Well, that depends. I can answer that when the other 2 books are released because I'm just gonna be blunt, so I apologize, but
Yeah. As long as there's no spoilers in the book. Which is that?
But season 8 is trash.
A lot of people feel that way. What do you think about that,
That's
Roger?
the general consensus.
Earlier, Roger, you were saying like it got better and better.
I have not read the books, but I do love the series overall, but I do also love the score. I know someone was mentioning music, and my favorite is the theme of the Night King, and I think you know what I'm talking about, what scene. And I'll ask this from everyone who's watched the series. Who is you have to pick your favorite character. Mine is Arya.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. My favorite's Daenerys.
Arya and then Melisandre.
I've
Didn't you?
watched bits and pieces, but I think Doran Martell intrigues me the most. I wish they had done more with him.
What's it
Read the
doing?
books.
I think he's in like 2
Heather?
episodes.
I
What?
think so.
You should definitely read the books because he gets a lot more in the books.
I know. I
Mhm.
don't know why they didn't do more with him in this series. I mean, did they not
They-
like Alexander Siddig? Because he's a superb actor, and I wish they would have
They-
utilized him more.
They did except for like Oberyn Martell, they did the Martells and the Sand Snakes dirty.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. It sucks. Alexander
Yes.
Siddig was a superb actor, and I wish Game of Thrones would have utilized him more than they did.
Oh, trust me, there's a character I really wish they utilized in the show, but she's not in the show.
Oh, you mean a Sand Snake character?
Well, all the Sand Snakes they got under.
Oh
utilized,
no,
but
I
the
meant
char-
like, sorry, I meant like the cousin of the Sand Snakes. Are you talking about that character in the books?
No, the character that's in the books that I wish was in the show that they should have used.
Was it the
Lady
zombie?
Stoneheart.
That's the one.
Yeah.
I didn't read it, but I heard about it and I was like, what?
Oh
I was
no,
they
disappointed that they
bring her?
didn't include Lady
Time for a
Stoneheart.
time for a spin-off. Just kidding.
Great. I
There
have
already is
a
a spin-off.
popular answer.
All right, bring it.
Cersei.
Yeah, I
Cersei
love
I would've
her.
loved
She's
to play
great.
Right.
Cersei.
Oh yeah, no,
Okay.
She's awesome.
And then my second that is just always fascinates me is the Liliana Mormont.
oh yeah, Leanna.
Ah,
Or
Oh.
Lyanna Mormont. Yeah.
She got really popular.
Yeah, my
I think
my four favorites are Daenerys, Jon Snow, Tyrion, and Arya.
I think the problem with I mean, it'll always be till the end of time. The problem with reading the books first, and when they dramatize it in a film or whatever, it's always going to be different. It's
yeah.
when you read the books, you're like expecting it to be true to. I've never watched a thing that just totally verbatim. Never, ever. And that's the problem. That's
Well, Roger,
see,
One that's really close is The Color Purple.
I watched the show first and then I looked into the book. So
Adding to it.
right, and then
Roxanne?
for me, oh,
Okay, I know
who's
Roxanne
next?
was just calmly raising her hand, but go ahead, Ashaki.
oh, okay.
Mhm.
Oh no, she could go ahead if she was raising her hand. I'll speak afterwards.
I think that is super fascinating that George R. R. Martin signed off on the rest of the scripts, but is still writing the books. And whatever he does it with, it may have absolutely nothing to do with what happened in the.
it's for sure
Very
the books are
interesting.
for sure going to be different.
All right,
Yeah.
Ashaki, what are you
Yeah.
thinking?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, I want to add to that and then do my comment, but like, I feel like the books will ultimately have the fundamental same ending, but they might get there a different way, is
for
what I
sure.
think. Yeah. But what I wanted to say, like, so as a writer, right? So, like, it's like when writing something, or like, at least when I'm writing a script versus like writing a book, right? In my mind, I want to put all of these details. And because it's a script and you're restricted with how many pages you can do, I have to like mentally edit. Whereas in my mind, I'm like, well, if I was writing a book, I'm going to put everything in there. And that's when it started to like really click for me that you can't do like a literal translation of like book to screen because it just doesn't work with the formatting. But there are, of course, some exceptions, like as you mentioned, like The Color Purple. And like if it can be done, then I think it will be done. But fundamentally, they're just like different formatting.
And it comes down to this, really,
That
production.
too.
That's
Yeah, and
the
interest.
biggest thing, really. When you watch these panels and whether it be Anne Rice or whoever trying to dramatize their books into, and some of them they hate what the screenwriter has written, and it turns out to be like a bestseller, like a blockbuster thing. because it's for the masses. It's like, well, you know, and you know, as writers, there's the, you know, Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey. It's like this happens and this happens and this happens, and there's the arc and there's the character arcs and blah blah blah, and you see it in pretty much every movie that is popular per se. But then you have something like Moonlight, or you have something like what was the film that won last year? Not this Oscar, the year before, in the Korean
Was it
film
Parasite?
Parasite.
Yeah, Parasite. You know, I mean, there's just, that's what makes this such filmmaking and writing so wonderful, because you can come from all different walks of life. But when you're adapting something, it's a whole different ball game, and you're gonna upset. You're just gonna not. There's going to be a lot of people that are not happy with how they treated the original source material.
Kat?
I was going to say that it's different. You know, usually you have either a book that gets made into a movie, or then you have the movie first and someone writes a book about it. This is the only one I'm aware of where you have the books partway, then the movies, or the episodes in this case, and then you have more book coming, which makes me wonder how they influence each other as they go through, because I always like to watch the one that comes out first. You know, if the book came out first, I'll read that. If the movie came out, I'll watch that first. But this one, I have to go back and forth, and that's unusual.
I think just Gurren got lazy.
Last week we did The Wrath of Khan, and one of the things I found interesting was that, you know, certain books and big productions like that have novelizations of the film. So it's the book that comes out after the movie, or actually is written simultaneously to the script. And sometimes those are different. And in this case, they had suggested for The Wrath of Khan that they would have potentially the book come out, the novelization come out before the movie with 4 different endings, so they didn't spoil the ending in the movie.
That's kind of cool.
That's another one of those.
That's really
I
cool.
like that.
Yeah.
Roxanne, what are you going to say?
Well, here's my question.
Sorry, Erin.
Being a film rookie, how much leeway does a director have when you have the screenplay that's very specific and has very specific characterization right in the screenplay, or like right in the script? How much leeway does a director then have to vary from it? Do they have any?
Almost always, I think it's now theirs. It's
Yeah,
now
in film. Yeah, sorry to cut you off. In film, it's the director's vision. In TV, it's, you know,
The showrunners.
The showrunners.
writers are the showrunners, and they're
I know Alexander Payne, and he said to me, 90% of a film is casting. The 10% is the script. I mean, that's him, but there's so many other types of directors that do, like, what's his name? Cameron.
James Cameron.
James Cameron. And then you have Ang Lee, and you have Ron Howard, and you know, so, but they all, every director, I'm a director too. It's like you have your vision, and everybody has to get on board with what you think it is. Obviously in theater, it's the playwright. You know, it's like the words, you have to read the words the way they are.
I would completely disagree. Oh, sorry, you're going to say something, Jacob.
Go ahead.
I would completely disagree with 10% being the actors, and, or sorry, 90%. It might be that way. 90% being the actors and 10% being the script, because I've seen some really amazing actors in some horrible scripts that I would never want to watch again. So that's all script.
Good actors and terrible directors.
Wonderful actors. No, it's the script. I would never watch it again.
Yeah, but that's why different directors have different points of view. All right, go ahead, Roxanne. I know you want to say this one.
No, I just have another question, and I'm really curious. So for the people who have watched it and are fans, have you also watched House of Dragon?
Yes.
I am watching it, but
I've never
I'm not
heard of
as
it.
into it.
And how are you
watched
finding
it
the
yet.
comparison?
it's not as compelling, but it's also season 1. Like, I did not like season 1 of Game of Thrones. I only watched it because I had to for work, and
Yeah,
then I got into it.
I think I
I'm
liked it
personally
more.
enjoying it, but that's because I like the lore of this franchise, and I also really like how Targaryen. Sorry.
I
Yeah,
have not
it's-
seen House of the Dragon yet, but I would like to.
What's it about?
It's a prequel to Game of Thrones, so it's about Daenerys Targaryen's ancestors.
It's about the Targaryen civil war where two factions of the family go to war for the throne because of the high towers being a bunch of dumbasses.
Well, that sounds fun.
Well,
it's fun.
after watching Game of Thrones, I mean, it's House of the Dragon. It's obviously, it's a decent series. It's not Game of Thrones. It's not like doesn't
Okay.
It just
that.
makes me miss Game of Thrones even more because it is like a sad second.
Is it done by
It's-
different people? I mean, not the different actors, obviously. Obviously,
I
the-
mean, different
showrunners, I
showrunners.
think.
Yeah.
people
Different
running it.
I don't know.
showrunners.
Yes, I
Um,
don't think they want D&D near that franchise ever again.
They
I
do
think,
something else. They
oh,
did, the Watchmen sequel.
What's that?
The Weiss, what are they? The Benioff and Weiss. Didn't the next
Yeah.
thing they made after this was the Watchmen series?
Did they?
If I'm correct.
Oh,
'Cause they didn't want to do any Game of Thrones anymore. I
Because
think
they wanted to go
that's
and do Star
correct.
Wars, and then that project fell apart.
interesting.
Mm.
I wonder if it's because of the source material why House of the Dragon. I mean, so far the consensus seems is not as good as Game of Thrones, but I mean, I don't know, 'cause I haven't seen it. I tried reading the book that House of the Dragons is like based off of, and I did not finish it. And
Is it also by Martin?
yeah, it is
Yes.
by Martin. I try to force myself to finish all books unless I just can't do it, and I just couldn't do it with this book.
I've only ever had that issue with one book in my entire life.
Green
I
Age
have that with
Never-
most books.
I'm finding for Roger that you said that so much of it is good actors. The House of the Dragons to me really, there are some casting issues. They even, the two blonde sons when they grow up, the actors like there's no
Yeah.
continuity of which one. Like they look like they should be the opposite of the ones they're cast as, and there's that whole the changing the age partway through, and there's a lot of things that just kind of make you go, they put them and that's supposed to be the grown-up of that person.
Yeah, it just makes you go, like,
and
like
then that takes you out of it.
it takes you out of it. Exactly. Now, I don't know what's going to happen after this. Maybe they're saving the best for the next season or whatever. But to clarify, as far as, when you're doing a film and the cast is in the opinion of one director, it doesn't make it successful to have 90% cast. It's I guess successful financial wise, because you have to have the cast in order to make the film, because you have to have the financing. I'm sure you guys know this. It's all about getting the financing to produce these really big budget films. Now, for something like Moonlight or Parasite or even this last movie, everything all where obviously you get creative and you have a brilliant script but it's show business. It's about making money. It's not about a lot of people get like this thing, the art and all that stuff. We all we'll do it because we love the art and we love to create, but people have to remember that they have to watch the movies. They have to, and to do that, you have to attract them with the stars. That's why all the films, I mean, I've taken so many classes now. It's like, they have to attach at least one star or this person or that person, or we're not going to fund this movie, and that's a sad reality of, if you have a script and you want, Tom Cruise, forget it. I mean, unless you have this brilliant script and he's going to want to do this and what have you. But I'm just kind of rambling on about this.
And what's cool is now that we do have a time and age when we have these awesome series that they can go for so long and make them this good. On that note, like what we were talking about earlier, I'm sure that not sure, but a lot of times the filmmakers have the same questions. I think all the complaints that people have, like they could be like debating over it and like fighting with themselves, like, I want to keep this character in there. They're so awesome. We can't leave them out. And the other person's like, I don't want to either, but we have to. It's not this story. It's not this arc. We're telling this person's story. And because of that, they don't add to this. So they're going to have to be out of this one and stuff. And they hate it too. But then they're like, we have to do it. So some of the discussions that everybody else talks about, they might have already had those as well. And they're like, yeah, eat them up. But I will say my favorite characters, now I'm going way back. I think Oberyn and what's her name? Olena Tyrell, the grandma.
Oh yeah,
Olena ruled.
Oh yeah.
Olena Tyrell.
She's just awesome.
Yeah,
Diana
Olena
Rigg.
ruled. She was the best of the Tyrells.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I'll have to watch it and really see. I just know Doran was intriguing in the scenes I saw him in, and I'm intrigued just by the whole family dynamic that I saw in episode 1. It's too early for me to really have.
It's a lot of
Opinion.
dynamics you'll see.
A lot.
Jacob and Roxanne, two things. One, those are fantastic picks for your favorites. And Roxanne, I think because the confusion with House of the Dragon, the time skips are going to be done because now they got to spread a 2-year war into 3 more seasons.
I just saw today that they started shooting season 2. So.
Sweet.
I just did a Google, and so I was wrong about the Watchmen. Cross that off. But I did just see that Benioff was the writer of The Kite Runner.
Oh,
Speaking of adapting things.
okay.
Is there any films, speaking of adapting, is there any books that you would want to be adapted for film? Anybody? I mean, I the first book that I really thought of was Catcher in the Rye. But that's because J.D. Salinger just wouldn't do that.
I'd be intrigued if they did these books that I read in my teens and early adult years called the Dragon Pit series.
I wanted a
I wish
book
they
called-
would, I wish they would adapt more of the Boxcar Children's series to movie. It would be intriguing.
What's that?
I think,
Really?
I mean, there's
You've
There's
never
one,
heard of the
isn't there?
Boxcar
Or was it
Children?
like-
Oh dear God.
I might have,
made
but
for TV.
I have not, Heather.
I have not either,
You're
Heather.
a father. You're a father. Your child would love the Boxcar Children. Oh
We're
my
watching Miss Rachel on YouTube. Miss Rachel is like
I
a
know
billion
the
Father,
views.
your
I've heard
little
about
girl
that.
will love the Boxcar Children, Roger. She will love it. You go Google
Roger?
it when we're done here.
Roger,
Looked it up.
thanks a
There's
lot. I know about Miss
least 4 of the
Rachel too
Boxcar
because of
Children.
my great
It's about
nephew.
4 orphan children who live in a boxcar and they're eventually found by their grandfather and they have all sorts of adventures.
It's interesting because there's a bunch of stories with that same story.
Theme.
It's the same theme,
Yes.
same story. A bunch of kids are abandoned by a parent and then they're raised by a grandkid. There's one I read. It wasn't the Boxcar Children, but it was the same story.
And I wouldn't mind seeing some of the Dear Canada series adapted to film. Have you ever read them? They're like little fictional diaries of people who live through real life events.
Cool.
My daughter loved those in middle school.
Yeah, I still read them.
I read a lot of science fiction. I'm a great big geek. And
High five.
most of the time that doesn't translate well. My favorite author, Heinlein, they've made some of his movies and they've absolutely sucked. So
Talking about
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say, I feel similarly. I don't know what books I want to be turned into a movie or show because, yeah, it's hard to adapt. The most recent book that I wanted adapted to a show was Anne Rice's latest series, The Witches, The Lives of the Mayfair Witches.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And the book was very like it was an experience for me. I didn't know how well it would translate to TV, especially to like AMC. And so far, I'm just like, I wish they did it for like maybe HBO or maybe Netflix, where you could kind of go all the way with the
That's a good
details.
question. I've been watching the Interview with the Vampire series, and I've
Yeah.
been very pleasantly surprised with it. But I
Yeah, so
haven't
I
tried
like
the Mayfair Witches.
So I like their adaptation of the Interview with the Vampire series, but like for the Lives of the Mayfair Witches, I'm not on board with it so far. And so I feel like Interview with the Vampire could stay on AMC, but Lives of Mayfair Witches probably needs to go to something that's used to like Game of Thrones level of
A little more
intensity.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a hard question, Roger,
Good night,
because the
Erin.
books I read, they're mostly
You too, Jacob.
biographies and
Good
fiction
night.
that I'm not sure would
Yeah, have a good night,
translate
everybody.
well. Good night.
Yeah. Have a good night.
Roger, this is a really hard question because the books
Well,
I read.
the reason
I'm
why
not sure how they would have done that.
I'm on these, I always attend these producing panels and what have you, and everyone's screaming for content.
Well, you know
tell
what?
you.
I don't
Always
have.
like-
They're getting a lot of content from the audio dramas, and there's
Yeah.
thousands
Yeah, I
of
know,
stories
that's
on my
true, it's
podcast
true.
that can be adopted.
And
Adapted, I
Kat,
should
what-
say.
so much recycled content right now and remakes and
Too much superhero comic books.
And I have something to say on the recycle stuff or remakes, but Kat, you wanted to add to the previous
I
question,
was
right?
going to say that it depends on how much of the book that you want to make into a movie has action in it versus just internal dialogue it's hard to convey on screen. Like I would love to see Wings of Fire, which is a children's book where all the characters are dragons and they all have different personalities and they have, a quest and a prophecy and things like that. That's really fun to go forward with. Although, and I haven't read them in a while, so I couldn't tell you how much stuff is in the dragon's head versus what they're actually doing. But I think there's enough. It'd probably have to be an animated movie because otherwise it's just all CG. But dragons. But things like Starship Troopers, which was made into a movie. The movie was okay, but the book was amazing because there's so much going on in between, what the characters are thinking that you can't get on the screen. As to all the logic as to why you should become, why you should join the military or why only the people in the military can become citizens and things like that. So it's
they did
really
Puppet
hard
Masters too.
balance.
Oh, it was so bad.
Yeah, and where this movie is just, let's go kill some bugs, right? And
Or
Yeah,
maybe
but it
there's
was a
something that
classic.
had-
It was a
something wasn't
classic
done
B
right.
movie.
it was.
a
I'm not
very
saying it's a
good
bad
canon.
movie.
I have a piece of
but
trivia
it's
about
just,
that movie.
it's like, here's the movie, and then here is the book. The book is so much larger, and here movies just, we'll take the fun parts of it and turn it into that, and the rest of it you just have to read about.
I watched. Go ahead. What shocked me?
Oh no, you could go ahead and I'll just
Right.
go after.
I
can give you
watched
some-
Pitch Black, and I really liked that movie. And then I heard what else they did in the book, and I'm like, oh wow, that would have made it even better. Other small points is like I might have mentioned this in a previous table we did, but Stephen King, like a lot of his books become movies and stuff, and he said. Like, I forget exactly which one, so I shouldn't try. I think it was Carrie, but he said like one of them was like the closest adaptation to his book almost directly. And it did well, but I think he was like, that was just okay. And then there was another one that he said they made changes and they made it their own. Like he kind of had some approval. He's all, and that one I liked better. He's all like that one, he felt like they elevated or changed in a good way.
On that note, I think one of the better adaptations I read, because I took a class once called Novel into Film, and one of the ones we studied was Dolores Claiborne, which was the Stephen King. And that, I would say that was a very good adaptation. Like they took out the extra fluff, they added things in, they got the good meanings in there. Another really great adaptation is Practical Magic. I think the movie in that case is way better than the book.
You know, one of the best adaptations I've ever seen of book to film is The Outsiders.
That was a good one too.
I'm surprised nobody mentioned it because we've all read it. We all had to read it in junior high.
I did.
No,
did.
I never
I'm
read
sure
it.
we have it.
Are
No,
you
me neither.
kidding me? What in the hell is this world coming to where nobody had to read The Outsiders in school?
Maybe it's a
But-
Canadian thing.
I don't know.
I
really
didn't.
don't know. But you all need to go and get a book and get the DVD and read The Outsiders.
Shaki, thank you for
Are you
being
kidding me?
waiting.
You've never, I can't, are you kidding me? You're disowned.
Big
Are you
rock.
kidding me?
Oh,
It almost
Big
seems like you might be
rock.
the only one who read it here, Heather. That's why all my head's shaking. So I think that
Really, Roger? You've
That's the
never
one
even
with
heard of it?
that's the one with Tom Cruise in the movie, right?
Yeah,
When he was a
Patrick
kid.
Swayze, Tom Cruise, Rob Lowe, like all the hot
Oh my
guys when they were
gosh.
All
kids.
right.
Thomas C.
Is that
Howell.
movie? Y'all are
Yeah.
going straight to hell for never hearing of The
S.E. Hinton.
Outsiders. Oh my gosh.
Pony
Shaki,
Boy.
did you want
Oh.
to going back?
Oh, well, what I was gonna say was that I like how more and more recently, instead of like trying to like cut things out of a book that they adapted to a movie, that they're doing like part 1 and part 2.
Mm.
Like with like Dune, for example. Like I saw part 1 and then went and read the book, which was extremely massive. And so I prefer like when they decide to either like create a series and maybe try to do it justice, whether keeping it details or their interpretation of it, or if they just decide to do like 2 movies. But I wonder at that point, do you have to be like a really successful director and be able to like get A-list actors in order to tell a studio, can we split this into 2 movies instead of 1?
Well, I think Lord of the Rings is a good example of that because they split that into
Uh-huh.
3 movies, and I don't think
Yeah.
Peter Jackson was too huge. He did stuff, but before that, and they got some really good actors in that as well. I don't know
That's
exactly how
true.
that all came together, but
Well, I
Took
think
those
what's
three.
go ahead. Sorry.
They took those 3 Philip Pullman books, The Golden Compass, The Subtle Knife, and the other one, name is escaping me. They made the first movie, The Golden Compass, and I think the casting was perfect. But it didn't succeed, so they couldn't make the other 2.
yeah.
Now there's a series where they're like pulling in elements of the middle book into the first series, and they're really going to go all the way to, but the casting isn't as good.
Mm-hmm.
I think that from what I've heard and read and seen is that the limited series are more popular now because a movie is too like you just can't fit everything in a movie. So like say the Queen's Gambit or some of these other limited series, and just for A-list actors or whatever their availability, they could do a movie, but they can't do like a 6-season series, 6 seasons of a series, but they can do a limited series because then they could shoot it within a certain amount of time, within a year at least. And then that way you could get like 3, 4, 5, 6 episodes of limited series and they're out, like now they're on to their new, the next project. And you have the creativity and the showrunner can kind of, there's arcs and character arcs and stuff like that. So that's what I've heard and read, that limited series are popular now.
Did y'all see
Now
the-
than ever.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Did y'all see the adaptation of the Babysitters Club to DVD to movie in like I think it was the 90s or the
I thought you were going to say, have you heard of The Insiders?
Oh Lord.
I
Have you heard of the
sure I saw
Babysitters
it.
Club? Because I'm about ready to cry because y'all.
I heard of
Oh,
the
no,
books
no,
and I heard
Babysitters
the
Club.
adaptation,
Down.
but
Oh my
I wasn't
gosh.
the audience for it, so I didn't read or watch them. So,
I
Dear
was.
God,
I don't.
Jacob, you have children and you haven't heard of half these books.
oh, I heard of those, but I don't have an
Jacob,
interest in them.
Roger, oh my gosh.
Are they on
Um,
YouTube? Can we watch
other-
it on YouTube?
Other books that
Maybe.
people may have an interest in, talking about adaptations.
Have you
and
read like the Harry
IP.
Potter books too? I know Harry Potter's a controversial subject for some, but I'll mention it. Harry Potter movie or book to movie, like they're very well done. Like some people
Some
don't
of
like
them,
the
yes.
artist, but I still like the art, so that's why I'm going to mention it.
Yeah, I thought it was great, and I listened to the books and loved listening to them.
Yeah.
But
Some of them I hated because they were like, "Wow, could you pull that out?" But
exactly. Yeah. So IP that is available for writers if they want to write. So in Canada, the expired the copyright or trademark, but not in the United States yet. James Bond. So if anybody in Canada wants to write their own James Bond movie, they can. United States can't.
I don't even know how publishing works up here anymore. I've self-published in 2010 and I don't want to do it again because it's too expensive, but I want to publish other things. So I don't know how.
There's some self-publishing that you can do on Amazon that isn't expensive. I mean, like, because it's like print on demand and stuff.
Free.
Jake,
Yeah.
are you going to bring up Winnie the Pooh?
There's
Angel,
Winnie
what
the
were you
Pooh.
gonna
I was
say?
actually going to bring up Sherlock
Angel was
Holmes.
trying to say something, y'all.
Well,
No,
she was
just I
adding
just
some
said it's
things that-
free.
it's
You
free to
can
do.
you can
Yeah.
self-publish for free.
But yeah, Sherlock Holmes is in the public domain if people want to do those stories, but those seem like super hard. But yeah, like you're bringing up, Aaron, Winnie the Pooh is the original. You can't do the things that people add to it later.
Mm.
And same with Steamboat Willie and stuff. But yeah, so there's a
To
lot.
say, have you seen
actually
there's
out there.
that Winnie the Pooh horror movie coming out?
I
Yeah.
heard about it.
I was just going to mention that. Thank you for mentioning that. How about Baby Shark, the series?
Baby Shark, made by Weiss and Benioff.
Winnie the Pooh horror sounds terrible.
Are we jumping the shark? Should we call this?
Good one.
All right. Yeah, it's been like 3 hours. I think it's probably good that
Yeah.
every great series has to end at some point.
So like, what are we reading next week?
Good segue. Good question. One I should know, but I don't. So I'm going to look it up right now.
And I didn't mean to shame anybody for not knowing books, but y'all especially
Shame.
with kids.
Shame.
I'm just
Shame.
Babysitter's Club was published after I finished school. So
Can you put on that video of doing the shame? For doing the
Yes, the
Thirsty?
shame bell.
I won't be quick enough, but yeah.
Shame.
So next week is Jane the Virgin. I'm gonna have to share that with my friend. That's one
Oh,
of my
that
favorite
sounds
shows.
fun. I've heard of it a little bit.
I watched the first
It's a
couple of
telenovela.
episodes and I thought they were great.
okay, Heather, you're
I
going on
enjoyed
about
it.
all of us not hearing about books, but these are all great series that you haven't watched. So
Yeah.
there.
Shame.
True.
Shame.
I know that she gets accidentally artificially
Yay.
inseminated.
Spoilers. I'm just kidding.
The name.
Yes.
There you go. Yeah. Where is it?
I don't know. I don't see it.
Shame the
Game,
virgin.
Game of Thrones.
Oh,
As
okay,
long
sorry.
as you cut it off so we don't get flagged.
Well,
Okay.
do you want to
There's gotta be
get
a
flagged
GIF.
and have all our work ruined? I don't.
Yeah, we can trim this at the end.
We can just say goodbye
Ooh.
after.
Oh, she looks so rough. I
Yeah.
just
Jonathan
think she had
Price.
such a fantastic character arc and so much complexity to her character.
Yes,
And a lot of
definitely.
it- a lot of it not
And did you
concludes,
know
but
the septum? What's her name? The lady who's actually ringing the bell and saying shame is the lady in Ted Lasso, who owns
Oh,
the football
Oh,
team.
really?
Yes. She's also in Hocus Pocus too.
Is that that's the
I-
owner? The owner?
Yeah, the owner of the team.
Oh, wow.
really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, Ted Lasso's a good show. Obviously, everyone talks about it. What do you guys think of the next season, the current season?
Haven't started it yet. Still,
Okay.
still in the first season.
Right.
Same. Still in the first season.
I can't
First
believe
season.
you guys.
I know.
Shame. Shame.
Same.
Shame.
Your new thing.
That's gonna be like a thing now with us. Shame.
Shame on
Everybody-
your children. Shame on your
Order a
family.
shipment
Shame
of
on-
bells and mail one to everyone.
Didn't hear anything from Abiskar. Hi, Abiskar.
Oh yeah, before we go, Abiskar, give your thoughts on Game of Thrones or this episode or Oliver, any or whatever you have to say. Thank you.
Hey,
Roxanne.
okay. Just a minute. Can I get a minute? I'm just changing clothes, getting ready for
Oh,
school.
we ask you at the exact worst time to put you on the spot.
Sorry.
I have control to
Shame,
turn on your camera. Shame, shame.
Shame.
Gonna retitle the name of this episode, Shame.
Yeah. Shame.
That's
I
how
will
we
be
make
looking
it.
forward to taking off all of this hair. They're all like individual pieces. My daughter is very blonde, and when she was young, for my sister's wedding, we got her all of these little extra hair pieces so that she could have long hair all done up. And I found them in the Halloween box.
That is awesome.
Yeah, they're like all like individual pieces of hair.
Oh,
Is that from an Elsa wig?
No, it's little hair extension things my daughter got when she was 10 for my sister's wedding. Yeah.
That's amazing. You look so good in it.
Well, thank you.
Well,
I was blonde one time.
Oh, I used to be literally, my hair used to be like that blonde, honestly. I've got
Mine too.
pictures if anybody wants to see them.
Yeah, when I was
When I
a
went
baby-
to Toronto to chase fame and fortune, I got to be a stand-in for Kay Lenz, and they made me be blonde for it. On a TV movie with Robert Urich, if anyone knows who he is. And Michael Ironside.
Yes, Robert Urich
flashback.
from what's that show? What's that TV show?
Spencer for Hire.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And Michael Ironside, who is a Canadian actor who's done a ton of stuff. Yeah.
That's
When I-
cool.
when I was a baby,
Very
I
long
had
time ago.
curly white towhead hair, but here is me with a blonde wig.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
Oh, that's
Oh, Jacob, is that real hair or is that a wig?
That was a wig. Yeah.
I told you, I prefer, like, I think you're better bald.
Well, thank you. Are you dressed yet, Abiskar? Come on, we're waiting. I'm just kidding.
I also was an extra on an episode of TNT, the series with Mr. T. Way
Oh,
back when.
I love Mr. T.
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
the fool? This guy, I
A
forget.
television series.
I used to love that show.
That's awesome. I hope to someday get as lucky as you are and be extras.
Oh, I did also protest with Uma Thurman. She was like a 17-year-old zitty-faced kid. Yep.
Uma?
Wow.
Uma Thurman, yep. I protested right
wow.
beside her. I got pictures. I'll have to find it. In a
How does
movie
an extra in
called
glow?
Oh,
Where the Heart Is. Which is a couple
Heather, you
movies
didn't
with
bring
that
out your pictures for the for
yeah.
last week, did you?
No, I didn't, but people can come approach message me and I'll show them privately.
Okay.
Night Cat.
So I suppose being kissed by Dominic Keating is a good, runner-up story.
Yes.
Shame. Shame.
Hey.
Yeah.
All right.
It's when I dyed my hair.
Oh, look at you
good.
looking stiff. Very nice.
Bippy.
I had sort
Yeah.
of long hair.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, you got the little frost tip.
Oh,
The
wow.
foot. Mhm. Was that hydrogen peroxide?
I forget what it was. It was for a
Fun is-
play, actually, when I was in New York.
Very cool. Very cool.
My
All right,
pleasure.
Abiskar.
I have
Say
a
everything
scar.
you-
Oh my
you
God,
wanted
you're
to
so
say, but we were
dressed,
just talking.
very dressed to the nines there.
Is that how you have to
That's a
dress for
school
school?
Yeah.
uniform.
Yeah, that's my school uniform. Nah,
Oh my
10 minutes.
God.
I have to get out by
Dog noses?
10 minutes now, I guess.
Oh.
They're cute.
All right.
All right,
Give us
any
five-
last thoughts?
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Abiskar? What did we miss? What do you love? What did you want to say that you didn't get a chance to?
I think everything about this episode is already summed up by everyone. I think I would epitomize it by saying like it was it was really nice having these three like this episode. I see in the Battle of Bastards, like the director, I guess it was Miguel Spanisco or something. Like he did his like excellent job of weaving together multiple plot threads and character arcs, especially like particularly those of Jon Snow and Sansa. Like after those those tragic events that happened before, like it shows it really shown the evolution of Jon Snow's leadership and the strategic decisions and how he put himself in danger to save his people, and Sansa's transformation from a naive young girl to a cunning strategic player in this show. I guess that I would say that's all. Like it was a masterful piece of writing that effectively built tension and weaved together multiple plot threads and created the general sense of excitement and immersion. Yeah, I'd say that.
100%. Thank you. You did bring up something I wanted to say earlier about Sansa and Jon Snow, about, again, the man not listening to the woman that has experienced that and his ego, because she like tried to warn him and say exactly what the other guy's going to do, but him not listening to his ego, he fell exactly into the other guy's trap, and everything that he had planned, and he made that mistake and did exactly. The other guy had the exact same plan as Jon Snow, but Jon Snow fell into it or whatever.
Yeah, but Sansa knew that Jon was not going to listen, so she rallied this army while he was away and was like, okay, here's your army. I knew you were going to listen, but I prepared for this. Here you go. Beat the crap out of him. Here you go. I love you.
She's like,
and it makes you think, even as like a watcher, like, oh shit, like I took Sansa for granted because I didn't even think to ask where she was.
That happened to me too.
I didn't even know she left.
Exactly.
There is a parallel between Sansa and Jon Snow in that, and Cersei and Jaime.
Oh yeah.
That same kind of thing, because Cersei says the exact same thing to Jaime, is like, you never thought about me, you never thought to ask me, you never thought that I might be the one listening to father and learning. And Sansa in her experience is like, had you thought, I know him, I know how he thinks, had you thought to ask me, I could have told you.
Yeah, to John's credit, he asked her then, but it was just more people and whatever. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone. Abiskar, don't be late to school.
Take care.
A good night, James.
Abiskar, I have a message.
Yes.
Don't do drugs.
Thank you.
No, never.
Say no.
All right.
Just say no.
Never.
Right. Thank you all.
Bye, guys.
For joining us.
And we should
Bye, everyone.
go out on shame.
Shame.
I guess this has been a signature now.